The life of Saitama, One Punch Man. Saitama is the main protagonist of the series and the titular One Punch Man and the most powerful being to exist in the series. Saitama faces a self-imposed existential crisis, as he's now too powerful to gain any thrill from battle. Initially just a hero for fun, Saitama later registers to be a professional hero for the Heroes Association and defends his home in Z City from monsters, villains, and other threats. Under the Heroes Association, he's assigned the hero name Caped Baldy and is currently ranked 7 in the B class. Welcome to the Amagi. In today's video, we're going over the life of Saitama. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Early life. Saitama lived in his apartment in the Z City ghost town by himself. As a child, Saitama often watched superhero shows and dreamt of being a hero. Middle school. On the second school day of middle school, Saitama reads a health and physical education manual. He doesn't hear the talk about the 2 third-year bullies who beat up a freshman who called himself the bicycle commuter the day before. After school on a rainy day, Saitama watches the news about an ongoing monster incident in Z City and the increasing outbreak of monsters in the last decade. Saitama drifts off to sleep and forgets to do his homework. The next day, his homeroom teacher calls him to the teacher's room to rebuke him. On the way to the teacher's room, he's confronted by the third-year bullies who had bullied the bicycle commuter. They demand his wallet, but Saitama tells them that he doesn't have one and prepares to fight them instead. However, Saitama is too weak to defend himself and the bullies steal his 200 yen. Suddenly, Piggy Bankin rams into one of the bullies and demands money from them. Saitama hears that one of the bullies' reasons for threatening the freshman to steal their money was to pay for his little brother's lunches. Saitama chases after the monster to get the money back, but the monster knocks him into a wall. After the police and special unit forces defeat the monster, Saitama returns to school to see his homeroom teacher. The teacher scolds Saitama for his behavior. On his way home, Saitama thinks about how unfit he is for society. Adulthood and his first hero act. One day, after yet another failed interview, a dejected Saitama encounters Crablante on the street. Crablante notices Saitama's lifeless eyes and spares his life. He tells Saitama that the prey he's after is a child with a cleft chin. As he walks on, Saitama spots the child Crablante mentioned. However, his nihilistic attitude takes over and he decides to not intervene in the matter. Suddenly, Crablante appears behind the child and attacks him, but Saitama impulsively saves the kid, which surprises himself. He urges the child to run away and demands to know why Crablante wants the boy dead. While Crablante explains the prank the boy pulled on him, Saitama chuckles and notes aloud how the monster resembles a creature from a children's cartoon he watched as a kid. Low self-esteem, am I right? This enrages Crablante, who pummels Saitama even after the latter resolves to live out his childhood dream of being a superhero by fighting back. Saitama then lassos one of Crablante's eye stalks with a loop of his tie and tears it out. Unbeknownst to him, the child tells his grandfather about the incident and the grandfather decides to create the Heroes Association to prevent similar incidents from happening. Resolving after this encounter to become a mighty superhero, Saitama started a daily training schedule which consisted of 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 squats along with running 10 kilometers every single day. He ate 3 meals a day, but only a banana as breakfast, and also didn't use the air conditioner to strengthen his mental resistance. These daily activities were extremely tough and caused his body excruciating pain, muscle aches, and vomiting blood. However, Saitama did not give up and continued his training day after day. Personification of a light pull cord attack. On Saitama's 300th day of training, his body had already felt the effects of working out too much. However, Saitama had shown signs of improvement, such as wrecking a car after saving a boy from an accident. At that time, personification of a light pull cord attacked the streets, looking for an opponent that would satisfy him. The monster punches cars and buildings as he keeps searching. To test his fruits of labor, Saitama challenged the monster but was sent flying after a single punch. Filled with the determination to overcome his limits, the monster punches Saitama again and is knocked down. However, Saitama quickly got up and spat out a tooth that had been bothering him because of a cavity. Saitama then defeated the monster with a single punch before moving on with his workout. King's Beginning. At some point in the first year and a half of Saitama's training, Octopus Clawman attacked an unspecified group of people. Saitama arrived and defeated Octopus Clawman, though he sustained multiple injuries from the fight. After the fight, he consoled one flailing villain who had suffered 3 scratches above his left eye from the mysterious being. When questioned about his injuries, Saitama shrugged it off, simply smiling at the thought that there was a special sale that day. Cicada Larva Attack. Sometime between when Saitama started training and started to lose his hair, Z City experienced a mysterious being attacked by the 170,000-year-old cicada larva. prompting the citizenry to evacuate to the state-of-the-art Shelter Number 7. The 3 low-ranking heroes sent to defeat the magic Cicada nymph were defeated, but survived and managed to find some straggling evacuees on their way back to the shelter, among them being Saitama. When Saitama discovered that he had been led to a shelter, he became upset, stating that he thought that following the heroes would lead him to the mysterious being. Saitama attempts to leave so that he can find the monster, but is restrained by the citizens, thinking he has become suicidal. The guard attempts to explain that the doors cannot be opened while the disaster is still ongoing, but reassures the public that the shelter can withstand any sort of attack. While she praises the structure's perfection, Saitama confronts her again to ask where the bathroom is, only for her to reply that the perfect shelter was nevertheless designed and built without bathrooms. Saitama slowly becomes more and more distressed, as he doesn't know if his bladder can hold until the situation ends. After overhearing that 2 A-class heroes were defeated by the beast and that it will take 3 hours for a Hero Association squadron to arrive, Saitama can't take it anymore. He walks to a wall of the shelter and breaks a hole in it, casually, with a single punch before the stunned onlookers, and runs off stating that he's going to the convenience store. Just as he's about to reach the store to use the bathroom, the 170,000-year-old cicada larva appears in front of him, which he promptly kills.
OVA Zero. This one's a story about Saitama when he still had hair and his costume was a tracksuit. Saitama continues his routine of defeating numerous villains in the abandoned area in Z City, but also has problems with rent money. Saitama speaks with a shop owner who's being forced by a local gang to surrender his store's deed. Several other shops have gone out of business and his store is the last one. A conversation between the gang boss and one of his stooges reveals that the boss has had an impulse to buy out all of the stores in the area to destroy them. Saitama gives counsel to the clothes shop owner to not give up, and the owner points him the direction of the gang's base, which turns out to be his apartment complex. He goes door to door meeting various criminals who work under the boss, but has no real interest until he hears them each mention a reward that's on their heads and soundly beats them. The boss is the only one left. After Saitama tells him that there's no need for overcharging, the boss loses it and transforms into the Fish of Darkness. Saitama and the boss have a brief fight until the boss mentions the reward on his head. Saitama returns to the landlady saying he's called the police and the reward should pay for his rent, but the landlady is revealed to be crooked, stating those tenants were her main source of revenue. She then throws Saitama out into the streets with his belongings in boxes. Saitama later returns to the shop owner to explain what happened. The shop owner then states that he was getting too old and has decided to close the shop anyway, but not after finishing a masterpiece that he made for Saitama, which turns out to be Saitama's hero outfit.
1.5 years after he started his training, he had lost his hair and became strong. He continued his training for another 1.5 years before starting his superhero career. Saitama Introduction Arc. Saitama watches a news report on Vaccine Man attacking Z City. Seeing the destruction, Saitama decides to confront the monster. Saitama appears at the scene just in time to save a young girl from Vaccine Man. The monster asks who Saitama is. Saitama then replies that he's just a guy who's a hero for fun. After reluctantly listening to the monster's angry monologue and watching its transformation, Saitama kills it with a single punch. After this, he screams out in frustration at another easy victory. Sometime after, Saitama hears about a demon-level disaster emergency stemming from the destruction of D City by the Brain and Brawn brothers. Saitama appears on the monstrous Madagori's shoulders and tells him to put some pants on. Fukigao, Madagori's brother, who's on his other shoulder, orders his brother to swat Saitama. However, Madagori absent-mindedly swats the wrong shoulder, instantly killing his brother. Enraged, Oni-chan! I freaking love that scene, by the way. Enraged, Madagori grabs Saitama, throws him to the ground, and assaults him with a flurry of punches, leaving a large hole in the ground. Saitama jumps out of the hole and punches Madagori to the ground with a single punch. As Madagori topples over, Saitama states that having an overwhelming power is boring. Unfortunately, Saitama's blow causes Madagori to fall on top of B City and destroy it. On his way back home, Saitama encounters Super Custom YO649Z Mark II. The monster rants about his backstory, and Saitama kills it with one punch. That night, Saitama has a dream where the subterranean people attack him and give him an exhilarating fight. Unfortunately, Saitama wakes up to the sound of the real subterranean people, and Saitama kills the leader instantly, and his people retreat. That's just how One Punch Man is, guys. House of Evolution Arc. Oh, this one's so good. While Saitama laments his emotionless life, a mosquito lands on his hand. After unsuccessfully swatting at it, it flies off and leaves Saitama enraged. Saitama then sees a news report about a mosquito swarm headed towards his city. Saitama pursues the mosquito he had been trying to kill and encounters Genos fighting Mosquito Girl. At that moment, Mosquito Girl finishes her blood-fueled evolution and sends her mosquitoes crashing down on Saitama and Genos. Genos incinerates the swarm, unintentionally burning Saitama's clothes off in the process. The newly empowered Mosquito Girl starts attacking Genos and tearing him apart with her claws. Just as Genos is about to resort to self-destructing, Saitama slaps Mosquito Girl, sending her flying through a nearby building and into the sky. Dusting off his hands, Saitama states that he hates mosquitoes. After witnessing Saitama's incredible power, Genos asks Saitama to make him his apprentice.
OVA One. This story takes place between Mosquito Girl's defeat and Genos showing up in Saitama's apartment. It begins at night with Saitama watching a video about aliens and stalkers, convinced someone is stalking him, which afterwards is shown to be because of Genos, who is trying to find out the secret to Saitama's power. Later on, Saitama goes out to eat and Genos follows him. Seeing as how expensive all the food is in the restaurant he's entered, Saitama orders the cheapest thing on the menu, a small plate of fries, which convinces Genos that this was the secret to Saitama's strength. Saitama then gets up and goes to the bathroom. After returning from the bathroom, Saitama is shocked to find out that someone stole one of his fries, a long French fry, the only one he liked. In reality, it was stolen by Genos for analysis. Later on, Saitama goes back to his building and waits outside to find his stalker. However, Genos is watching him from afar and from another direction. Genos hears that the results of the fries analysis have come and he goes to check them out. A short time after, there's an assault by the B-class criminal, Man's Esthetician Man, who encounters Saitama and recalls him as someone who has beaten him before. Saitama, on the other hand, doesn't remember Men's Esthetician Man. However, Saitama is convinced that Men's Esthetician Man is his stalker and the one who stole his French fry. Around the same time, Genos is seen at the lab checking the results of the French fry analysis, which results in it being a normal French fry. He then hypothesizes that Saitama may be a cyborg like him. Moving back to Saitama, we see a hole in the wall in the shape of Man's Esthetician Man, and Saitama telling him to just approach him next time rather than steal his food. Saitama is later seen going back home and complaining about not getting any recognition. In the final scene, we see Genos right before Saitama's apartment, which leads us back to the original storyline.
At Saitama's apartment, Genos gives a long explanation of his past and motives, but Saitama is completely uninterested. Nevertheless, Saitama agrees to take Genos in when Genos explains that he simply wants to become as strong as Saitama. Meanwhile, Dr. Genus of the House of Evolution sends his creations to retrieve Saitama as a test subject after seeing him defeat Mosquito Girl. Comic Cutie arrives at Saitama's apartment first, crashing through the ceiling, but Saitama punches his head off. Saitama jumps outside and buries Frogman and Sluggerus in the ground. Ground Dragon grabs Saitama's legs and pulls his body into the ground, leaving only his head above the ground. Genos rushes to Saitama's aid, but is intercepted by Armored Gorilla. Beast King then approaches Saitama. Saitama starts to doze off, which angers Beast King. The creature threatens Saitama, who effortlessly steps out of the ground, much to the surprise of Ground Dragon. Beast King then attacks Saitama, killing Frogman and Sluggerus in the process, but Saitama dodges his attacks. Saitama uses consecutive normal punches and obliterates the monster. The terrified Ground Dragon tries to flee underground, but Saitama digs underground, shows his face, and punches the monster out. When Saitama gets back to the surface, he finds that Genos has already defeated Armored Gorilla and is interrogating him. After Saitama shows Armored Gorilla the remains of Beast King, Armored Gorilla tells them all they want to know. Roughly 4 hours later, Saitama and Genos climb a forest path and arrive at the House of Evolution headquarters. Wasting no time, Genos destroys the above-ground portion of the base with an energy blast, surprising Saitama slightly with his ruthlessness. In the rubble, they find a metal door which leads to the underground facility. As they enter the subterranean portion of the lair, they hear Carnage Kabuto bounding down the corridor. The monster slams Genos into the wall and challenges Saitama to a fight, which Saitama accepts. As the two are about to fight, Genos reappears and attempts to fight Carnage Kabuto, but is quickly beaten down again. Carnage Kabuto comments on how he can feel that Saitama is really strong, while Saitama tells him not to disappoint, as he expects Carnage Kabuto to be the strongest being of the House of Evolution. Moving with tremendous speed, Carnage Kabuto moves behind Saitama. Just as he's about to strike, he leaps backwards. He senses that if he had attacked Saitama at that very moment, he would have been killed. He explodes with rage and fear and asks Saitama how he got so strong. Saitama agrees to tell everybody around him and explains that he got his strength by training his body. His regimen consisted of 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run every single day. Genos is outraged, stating that Saitama's strength would be totally impossible to achieve with that level of routine strength training. Annoyed by Saitama's apparent lie, Carnage Kabuto enters Carnage mode and states that he will rampage for a week until the next Saturday. Carnage Kabuto then begins to pummel Saitama, sending him flying around the room. While this is going on, Saitama comes to the horrifying realization that if Carnage mode lasts for a whole week ending on a Saturday, then the current day is Saturday and he missed the special sale. Overcome with despair, he cries out and obliterates Carnage Kabuto with one punch. Thankfully, Genos informs him that they still have some time, if they hurry, to make the sale. I love how freaking normal Saitama is. It's so funny.
OVA Two. This is a story about Genos and the time he met Don Pacino, a wanted C-class criminal, and his family in a warehouse along with a man who's being held captive by the gang. Don Pacino takes Saitama's keys and asks Genos to reveal information about the man, and in return he would give the keys back. Genos readily accepts the offer and tells him how important the keys were. He talks about the conversation between him and Saitama in a communal bath, discussing the various sounds that would be fitting while taking a hot bath. After the conversation, Saitama tells Genos to go home. He gives his room keys and warns him not to lose it. Genos waits for Saitama. While going home, Saitama notices a food store and decides to cook hot pot for dinner. He needs some ingredients, so he took out his leaflet and saw that there's a sales for high-quality chicken thighs in a supermarket. Genos suggests that if they split, they could take the ingredients before the sale was over. Genos heads to the two nearest supermarkets until he spots a monster and decides to eliminate the threat. And by the time he reaches the supermarket, the sale is already over. Upon hearing Genos' story, Don is annoyed and demands that Genos tell him what business he had with the man who is the Typhoon's #2 family member. Genos continues his story, telling him how he met them. After failing to reach the first sale on time, he went to a second shop and to his surprise, it was closed. Genos encounters a passerby and asks him why the shop was closed. The man replies saying that Don Pacino forced all the shops to close after he ransacked their place. When the man coughed and fell down, Genos held him and the keys slipped out of Genos' hand. Don Pacino entered the scene and took them to their place. After hearing Genos' story, Don realizes that Genos was a passerby and has no connection with the Typhoon family member, so he takes out his guns. He and his gang begin shooting Genos with a barrage of bullets. Genos, unharmed, responds by using his Incinerate move, leaving them alive and freeing the captive man. After reaching home, Genos tells Saitama about the incident of losing his keys and why he couldn't get the chicken. Saitama, without hesitation, calmly replies that he had spare keys. They cook dinner with the meat that Genos bought as an alternative.
Paradise Group Arc. Saitama is first seen waking up frantically from a dream involving someone pointing a snotty finger at him. Realizing it was just a dream, he turns on the news and finds out that the criminal Hammerhead and his terrorist organization known as the Paradisers, consisting entirely of bald, dangerous-looking men, have arrived and started wreaking havoc. The news warns everyone to avoid any bald man with a dangerous aura. This angers Saitama, who states that this group will ruin his image, as everyone will mistake him for a villain. He resolves to destroy the Paradisers to protect his image. Saitama heads out to search for the villains, and on his way, many people end up mistaking him for a member of the Paradisers. On his search for the Paradisers, Saitama finds himself lost in a forest. Trying to find a path out, he is halted by Hammerhead. Hammerhead mistakes Saitama for someone wanting to join up with the Paradisers, but Saitama tells him that he actually came to destroy them. Hammerhead swiftly attacks Saitama with a vicious punch, but Saitama is unfazed and unimpressed. Enraged, Hammerhead charges up to full power and executes his windmill attack. Upon seeing this, Saitama notices it looks much like an attack he used to perform as a kid and wonders if Hammerhead is similar to him. He then stops the attack with little effort and shatters Hammerhead's battlesuit with a quick punch. After making him promise to never do bad things again, Saitama allows Hammerhead to flee. Shortly after, a powerful ninja, Speed of Sound Sonic, arrives, demanding to know where Hammerhead has gone. Saitama points in the direction that Hammerhead fled in. Sonic then attacks Saitama, mistaking him for a member of the Paradisers with a kunai thrown at lightning-fast speed. However, Saitama effortlessly catches both the kunai and Sonic's subsequent attack with a sword, and then proceeds to break the sword in half. Saitama then frantically explains that he's not a member of the Paradisers, and asks Sonic whether or not he recognizes him as a man who has saved the world many times. When Sonic denies knowing him, Saitama becomes severely disheartened. Sonic again proceeds to attack Saitama, stating that the real problem is that Saitama was able to see 2 of Sonic's attacks, and that his pride cannot allow for Saitama to live. Upon hearing this, Saitama accuses Sonic of being a liar, stating that Sonic just wants to test his attacks on him, indicated by the childlike smile on Sonic's face. After Sonic jumps around for quite some time, Saitama intercepts him and asks if he can go home now. Surprised, Sonic retaliates with a Windblade kick. Saitama attempts to interrupt Sonic's attack by placing his fist directly in the path of Sonic's groin. However, he accidentally moves his fist too far and taps Sonic's groin. Clearly in pain, Sonic swears that he will train day and night for their rematch, and then flees. Later, Saitama is at his apartment going over the day's events with Genos. Saitama asks Genos to leave, stating that he's in shock due to a certain event that occurred that day. Genos, worried about anything that might shock Saitama, asks what it is, and Saitama explains that he can't believe that Sonic had no idea who he was despite all of his previous exploits. Genos then asks if Saitama was a registered superhero, to which Saitama replies that he's not. Genos goes on to explain that anyone who hasn't registered with the Hero Association will never be recognized for their feats. Saitama then resolves to become a licensed hero so he can achieve the fame he deserves. He asks Genos to register with him in exchange for formally accepting the latter as his disciple.
OVA 3. After losing against Saitama, Sonic struggles to cope and cannot fight properly after his defeat, even having repeating nightmares and flashbacks of the incident. He begins training in a forest with a Amagi hunter who is looking to kill a bear that scarred him. After receiving some advice from the hunter, Sonic contemplates about it, but is disturbed by some noises. He arrives and saves a baby boar from a snake that quickly bonds with him. Naming the boar Ino, Sonic continues training, gradually regains his confidence, and overcomes his fears. He decides to leave, and as he says farewell, the hunter corrects him and introduces himself by his real name, Frank, which surprises Sonic. After leaving, the bear who scarred Frank appears and overpowers him and knocks him out. Saitama shows up searching for food. After eyeing Ino, the boar ran off, leaving Saitama taking the bear. At his apartment, Saitama and Genos are eating hot pot with bear meat while Sonic silently watches over the city, ready for his next battle with Saitama. After Frank wakes up, he and Ino look with amazement at the forest cleared with a single punch.
National Superhero Registry Arc. Saitama arrives at the 6th official Superhero Certification Exam Center and begins a series of physical tests. Saitama does so well in the physical tests that he awes the examiners and disheartens the up-and-coming heroes from taking the tests altogether. Later in the waiting room, Saitama meets with Genos, and the two discuss the easiness of the hero qualification tests, and state that there's no way they didn't pass. When the results of the tests arrive, it is revealed that Saitama barely passed, having achieved a score of 71 when the passing is 70, and received the C-Class Hero designation. Despite this, Saitama achieved a perfect score in every physical test and broke every record of the Hero Association, and the only reason his score was so low was that he did poorly on the written test. Later, during a lecture from A-Class Hero Snack, which is like Snake, Saitama is chewing bubblegum, seemingly bored. This angers Snack, and along with hearing the news that Saitama could quickly surpass him, causes Snack to ambush Saitama. However, he's quickly defeated. I love how he uses his, sneak arm. That's why his name is Snack. So stupid. Sometime later, Genos requests a sparring match with Saitama. Saitama, having earlier agreed to take Genos as his disciple officially, under the condition that Genos registers as a hero as well, accepts his challenge. The battle begins with Genos firing a massive energy attack, which Saitama dodges with ease. Genos proceeds to attack Saitama physically, but eventually discovers he was chasing Saitama's afterimage the whole time. After an extremely close-range energy attack in which Genos believes he finally landed a blow on Saitama, Saitama, having dodged the attack, pokes Genos in the face and declares himself the victor. Genos stops to remind him that the match cannot end until one of them is unable to continue. Upon hearing this, Saitama appears in front of Genos and delivers a death punch, which stops inches before hitting Genos' face. Though unharmed, the landscape behind Genos is obliterated. Saitama and Genos then return home. After the sparring match, they head out to a shop where they have an eating contest. While Genos had no problem eating, Saitama nearly passed out. The A-Class hero Sweet Mask comes and asks Genos to speak with him outside, with Saitama warning Genos about rookie crushing. 5 days later, Saitama is seen lounging around his house reading a magazine. He notices Genos carrying a huge backpack full of contents unknown, who then requests to live with him. At first he declines, but after Genos tells him that he will pay him the rent, Saitama allows Genos to stay with him. Genos later informs Saitama that all C-Class heroes who are inactive for a week are removed from the official registry. Saitama, realizing he only has 2 days remaining, sets out to find a villain, only to discover that Z City is completely peaceful. Saitama decides that he'll check again the next day and returns home. Upon discovering that Z City is peaceful for the 2nd day in a row, he becomes greatly distressed. All of a sudden, a kunai is thrown at Saitama. Saitama catches it and discovers that his would-be assailant is Speedosound Sonic. Saitama tells Sonic that he's busy and begins to walk away, but Sonic rushes to intercept him. Frustrated, Saitama bites Sonic's sword, shattering it in a blink of an eye. Saitama then threatens Sonic that if he gets in his way again, he will punch him. At this moment, a woman from the crowd observes Saitama and states that he's being a suspicious person. Saitama, thinking that the woman was referring to Sonic, begins to lecture Sonic for being so violent. Then, a C-class hero named Tank Top Tiger explains that the woman was referring to him. Saitama says that he's also a registered hero, but Tank Top Tiger states that he has no idea who Saitama is and thinks that he should leave as he's ruining the reputation of other heroes. Saitama becomes increasingly annoyed, but before he has a chance to attack, Sonic launches a surprise assault on Tank Top Tiger, who is defeated instantly. Sonic begins to wreak havoc on the surrounding civilians. During this chaos, Saitama saves a small boy's life by effortlessly moving a tree in place to intercept a falling car that would have killed the boy. Saitama, angered both by the fact that he can't find a bad guy to fight and that civilians are in danger, realizes that Sonic is now considered a bad guy and decides to retaliate. Saitama appears behind Sonic and dispatches him with a single swift chop. By defeating Sonic, he has saved himself from being removed as a registered hero. Rumored Monster Arc. Saitama, apparently returning home from shopping, happens upon a scene where Kombu Infinity had just defeated 2 A-class heroes in battle. Upon seeing the monster, Saitama remembers that he forgot to get Kombu and notices that the monster appears to be made out of it. Later that day, Saitama is seen cooking Kombu that was taken directly from the monster's body, leaving it totally naked. Geno states that Saitama wanted to eat Kombu to see if it could make his hair grow back. Poor Saitama, he's never gonna get his hair back. Giant Meteor Arc. Saitama and Genos are relaxing in their apartment when Genos tells Saitama that Saitama has been promoted from C-Class rank 388 to rank 342. And while Genos hasn't been raised from S-Class rank 17, he's been ranked 6th in popularity. Genos then gets a call from the Hero Association and heads out. Later, after Genos fails to destroy the meteor heading towards the Earth, Saitama shows up and asks Bang to take care of Genos. He then launches himself at the meteor and punches his way through it, causing it to break apart. Unfortunately, the pieces of the meteor then rain down on Z City. Saitama lands and then walks off, concluding that the situation is taken care of. 3 days later, Saitama and Genos are relaxing in their apartment, watching a news report on how the meteor fragments destroyed many buildings and businesses in the city. After learning that his rank had jumped up from C-Class rank 342 to rank 5, Saitama gets excited and decides to go out for a walk around town. During his walk, he gets called out by Tank Top Tiger, but Saitama doesn't remember who he is. Tank Top Tiger then declares that Saitama is a liar, that there's no way he would be able to destroy a meteor on his own, and that he merely took credit of the S-Class hero's work. Saitama starts to defend himself but is cut off by Tank Top Tiger, who calls out for his big brother, who jumps in and introduces himself as Tank Top Black Hole. Tank Top Black Hole claims that he has a perfect punishment for a lying cheater like Saitama. He then, in a rather loud voice, starts accusing Saitama of destroying the town. The commotion starts to attract citizens who begin to gather around the scene. Tank Top Black Hole continues to accuse Saitama of destroying the town on purpose, and slowly the crowd begins to turn on Saitama, shouting out threats and accusations along with Tank Top Black Hole. Tank Top Black Hole then accuses Saitama of wanting to destroy the citizens just as he destroyed the town, and then challenges him to a fight. Tank Top Tiger then rushes forward to attack Saitama, but gets easily knocked away into a pile of rubble, much to Tank Top Black Hole's surprise. Tank Top Black Hole then jumps in and tries to crush Saitama with his grip, which Saitama intercepts and locks hands with Tank Top Black Hole and squeezes, causing him to fall to his knees in pain, and apologize for lying. To his surprise, however, Saitama tells him that he wasn't lying. Saitama then shouts to all the citizens that he did destroy the meteor, and that if anyone has a problem with him, they should say it to his face. Some citizens move to accuse him of the damage done to their property, but Saitama quickly shouts them down, telling them to blame it on the meteor, and that he's not doing hero work because he wants to be admired by them, but because it's something he wants to do, leaving his accusers stunned in silence.
OVA 4. After the giant meteor was destroyed, Bang begins to spy on Saitama and Genos to gauge their abilities. Hopeful that his water stream rock-smashing fist martial arts is stronger, and that proving so will coerce Saitama and Genos to study under him, Bang invites Saitama and Genos to his dojo under the pretense of giving them free meat. Soon, Bang challenges Saitama to a variety of games, including card-based memory games and rock-paper-scissors, with Bang winning almost every time. During one rock-paper-scissors match, an enraged Saitama nearly crushes Bang with a hammer, who is then forced to admit that Saitama is truly powerful. He does note, however, that the rock-paper-scissors game was the most excited he had ever seen Saitama be, and offers Saitama to join his dojo. Saitama refuses the offer.
Sea Monster Arc. On his way home, Saitama comes across a sea folk about to attack a city, so he defeats it quickly. Sometime later, Saitama is relaxing as Genos does the dishes, and explains that Saitama has advanced to the second rank of C-Class. He goes on to explain that once Saitama becomes rank 1, he can get promoted to B-Class. Genos then starts talking about how the top-ranking C-Class hero hasn't left his position for around half a year, which apparently is no match for the top-ranking B-Class hero. Before Genos can finish talking though, he gets a call about an attack on J City by more Sea-Folk. After seeing a news report on the incident, they decide to head out to help. Sometime between them leaving and them getting there, Saitama and Genos get separated. During his search for the Deep Sea King, Saitama finds Moomin Rider's cell phone lying in the street. Upon picking it up, the man on the other end of the line requests to know who he's speaking to, and despite Saitama only being listed as a C-Class hero, decides to disclose the location of the Deep Sea King, apparently to finally determine just how strong Saitama is. Later, Saitama arrives at the shelter just in time to witness Moomin Rider's defeat at the hands of the Deep Sea King. He catches Moomin Rider's unconscious body and tells him he fought well. Saitama then observes the scene and is surprised to find that Genos is still alive despite his grievous injuries. After remarking that he will quickly dispatch the Deep Sea King, Saitama is attacked by the monster. However, he is unscathed by the attack. Deep Sea King declares his surprise that Saitama did not fall from his punch, but Saitama remarks that the monster's punch was simply too weak to hurt him. Meanwhile, the spectators talk amongst themselves, telling each other that their situation hasn't changed at all, with only a C-Class rank 2 hero arriving. Deep Sea King starts to tell Saitama that he, as the ruler of the Mother Sea, stands at the very top of the pyramid of all living organisms on Earth. Saitama interrupts Deep Sea King and tells him to hurry up and fight. Deep Sea King then quickly attempts to punch Saitama, only for Saitama to punch a hole in his body. As Deep Sea King falls, Genos is seen smiling, and all the spectators stare on in disbelief. Standing triumphantly over the body of the monster, Saitama overhears the crowd of onlookers, starting to question the usefulness of the rest of the heroes who battled the monster. Not wanting the hero's good reputation to be tarnished, Saitama remarks loudly that he got off lucky and that if the other heroes hadn't weakened Deep Sea King beforehand, he wouldn't have stood a chance. To further the credibility of his ploy, Saitama plays on the rumors of his underhanded nature by stating that because he's the one who dealt the finishing blow, he'll get all of the credit for the victory, regardless of the other heroes' valiant efforts. Saitama's plans prove successful, and the people's faith in the other heroes is restored. Saitama, on the other hand, grows more hated in the eyes of the citizens. Internally, Saitama reflects on how dull the battle with the Deep Sea King turned out to be. Sometime after the battle with Deep Sea King, Saitama and Genos receive a box via airdrop from the Hero Association, containing several letters addressed to the heroes themselves. Upon opening the 5 letters that were addressed to him, Saitama discovers that the first 3 contained nothing but hateful words accusing him of cowardice and cheating, which angered Genos greatly, but were disregarded by Saitama. The 4th letter contained a simple thank you from an anonymous reader. The 5th letter turned out to be a letter directly from the Hero Association itself, notifying Saitama of his promotion to C-Class rank 1, and inviting him to the Hero Association headquarters in Z City. Upon arrival, Saitama requests to know why he was summoned to the headquarters and suspects that they called him to be reprimanded for his actions. His hosts, however, insist that the circumstances for which he was invited are quite the contrary, and they congratulate Saitama on reaching C-Class rank 1. They then go on to inquire as to whether or not Saitama will move up to B-Class or remain in C-Class. Saitama expresses his apathy on the subject, but then goes on to state that he'd rather be B-Class, since he would no longer have to report his weekly activities to the Hero Association. He also internally reflects that he can't remain in C-Class forever, especially considering that Genos is already in S-Class. Other officials of the association watching from a separate room question even the legitimacy of his results, to which one suggests that they allow him into B-Class to test that legitimacy. Should he hold his own, his power would be unmistakable, otherwise he will be broken by the factions in B-Class, in particular the Blizzard group. Finally, they consult Sweet Mask for the verdict. Sweet Mask, finding neither significance in promotions from C-Class to B-Class, nor anything noteworthy in Saitama's impression, allows it. Later on, Saitama is walking home, examining the official document declaring him a B-Class hero, when a delightful smell from a small Oden shop draws him inside. Upon entering, Saitama orders an assorted Oden and takes a seat at the counter where he's asked by another patron in the shop if he will have anything to drink with his Oden. The patron then states that if Saitama won't order a drink, then he will treat him to one. Upon observing the stranger, Saitama discovers it is none other than a bruised and battered Moomin Rider. Saitama questions why Moomin Rider would want to buy him a drink, to which Moomin Rider states that, if for nothing else, it would be to celebrate Saitama's promotion to B-Class, and also reveals himself to be the sender of the thank you letter that Saitama had received. Upon finally recognizing the man as Moomin Rider, who he saved from Deep Sea King, Saitama accepts his offer and orders a Mozuku. Sometime afterward, Saitama would rank up from B-Class rank 101 to rank 63.
OVA 5. During the Seafolk invasion, the Blizzard group gets rid of one of the Deep Sea King's henchmen. They're disheartened to learn that their heroism didn't make it into the next day's newspaper, while everyone else's did. Fubuki takes this the hardest and decides to go on a train ride to Z City to clear her thoughts. Genos happens to also be on the same train on his way home with groceries. Later during the ride, Genos receives a call that an ex-hero serial bomber planted a bomb on the train, and that it will detonate once it reaches the train station. Fubuki evacuates the panicked civilians off the train while enlisting the help of the budding new hero, Swim, to find the bomb, while Genos tries to slow down the train from the outside. As Fubuki evacuates Swim, she hesitates while thinking about what to do with the bomb. Tatsumaki appears and successfully allows the train to detonate with no casualties. Fubuki once again expresses envy towards her older sister's actions. On the walk back, Fubuki meets up with Swim, who expresses gratitude for Fubuki's actions, and wishes to join Fubuki's group once she reaches B-Class. Meanwhile, Genos visits Dr. Kuseno asking for psychic augmentation, to which the doctor denies, since it's out of his range of specialty. The OVA ends with Saitama wondering why Genos is so late.
Alien Conquerors Arc. Saitama and Genos are watching the martial artist hero Bang demonstrate one of his techniques to the duo. Upon being asked to attempt the technique, the pair express their disinterest in a non-destructive technique, eliciting an outburst from Bang's only disciple, Chiranko. After being questioned on the whereabouts of the rest of his students, Bang explains that a long time ago, one of his students went out of control and defeated a good handful of them, causing all of them to leave the dojo, subsequently forcing Bang to take it upon himself to take him down. Shortly after, a member of the Hero Association arrives and declares that all S-Class heroes are to report to HQ immediately to address the major crisis. Genos states that, since all S-Class heroes are being convened, they might need Saitama's power, so Saitama accompanies them to HQ. The first S-Class hero to interact with Saitama is S-Class rank 4 Atomic Samurai. Even after hearing the praise of Saitama from Bang, refuses to shake Saitama's hand, stating that he will only acknowledge those in the S-Class. Saitama then hears a flurry of disapproving remarks at his presence at the meeting and looks over to discover the culprit is a very small girl who, to his surprise, happens to be the S-Class rank 2 Tatsumaki. Thinking she's just some cheeky kid, Saitama blatantly ignores her and goes to sit down with the rest of the heroes, angering Tatsumaki, who continues to complain. As most of the S-Class heroes are conspiring with their own thoughts, Bang asks why they were called here for. Saitama then casually asks for some tea. After having heard of the great calamity foretold by the renowned fortune-teller Shibabawa, Stitch unnervingly elaborates on how punishing the impact of the most recent prediction she had made before her death would be. He tells the assembled heroes that the prediction may come true at any time in the next half a year. Saitama couldn't help but simply muse that this disaster that has the Hero Association coordinator so on edge could just as well occur today or tomorrow for that matter. After Stitch asked him who he was, Saitama simply states how glad he is to have come along for the meeting. Just as he was finished bemusing over the emergency meeting, the entire building complex shook with thunderous turbulence as though it had been hit by a massive tremor. While outside the complex, numerous flying creatures led by the Sky King could be seen gathering around for an all-out assault on the surface world. However, the would-be incursion was soon dispatched by a UFO like Albatross the size of a major metropolitan area. Having already picked up on what had happened to the obliterated A-City outside the Hero Association's HQ, Saitama quickly leaps all the way to the rooftop to get a better view of the action before Genos could even erect a response out of him. Upon seeing the giant spaceship, Saitama heads towards it, evading and deflecting cannon fire directed at him. As soon as he managed to reach it, Roribus gets in his way, but is defeated in a single punch. Saitama keeps searching inside while wrecking whatever and whoever got in his way. Geryugun Shub tries to beg him into leaving the spaceship to no avail. Saitama eventually reaches Boros' throne room entrance, the leader of the invading dark matter thieves. Before Saitama can reach Boros, however, Geryugun Shub challenges him, only to be easily dispatched. Saitama stating that flinging rocks around using telekinesis was a waste of superpowers before flinging one through Geryugun Shub's head. Boros was amazed that he managed to defeat his strongest fighters as easily as he did and proceeds to take him on. The battle of the S-Class heroes and alien invaders began, Saitama's own battle with Boros was getting underway. After hearing why the aforementioned galactic warlord went on a tirade, shattering planets and razing civilizations, all due to insurmountable boredom out of being an unstoppable force looking for a worthy opponent to temper his might, Saitama expresses his disgust towards Boros' petty genocidal indulgence and whacks him. Doing so, however, inadvertently shatters his armor, which acts as a restraining bolt on the Intergalactic Raider's own power. This somewhat surprises Saitama, as this new opponent was one of the first individuals he has ever met to survive his one-hit kill blow. Soon, metaphorically shifting into a more powerfully energized form, Boros begins realizing his unsealed inner power. As the two clash repeatedly, Boros compliments Saitama on having lasted this long against his might, while the latter retorts that his adversary is equally impressive. As the battle grows more and more intense, Boros begins taking the upper hand in the conflict against Saitama, knocking him around his vessel's throne room, eventually culminating in the two plowing through the top of the ship. There, Saitama weathered some of Boros' strongest attacks, while only taking minimal damage in his assault. After growing bored of Boros' constant boasting and flaunting of his regenerative capabilities, Saitama wonders aloud if he was finished due to his inability to fight seriously. Boros responds by unleashing his most powerful transformation yet, his meteoric burst. Boros then unleashes a thunderous onslaught, which began annihilating his own ship, subsequently kicking Saitama all the way to the moon. Saitama quickly realizes where he landed, catapulting himself from the moon's weaker orbit back to Earth, landing meteorically upon his adversary's ship, causing it to jolt towards the ground upon upheaval due to the impact. Boros, now infuriated, furiously assaults Saitama, but Saitama simply counters it with a devastating blow of his own, a simple punch that promptly eviscerates Boros, only for him to quickly regenerate his scattered self back together. Initiating his final measure, the dreaded Boros struck out at his opponent with his planet-killing trump card Collapsing Star Roaring Cannon, intending to decimate Saitama and the Earth's surface layer in one gigantic blast. However, Saitama, unfazed by this apocalyptic announcement, simply says he would counter it with his own winning trump card, his Serious Punch, which not only deflected the genocide wave, but also obliterated Boros on the spot, but also parted the cloud cover for several thousand miles across the globe. While he lay dying, admitting he found the excitement he long sought after while making his way across the cosmos, Boros commented that he and Saitama fought to the bitter end, with neither giving an inch, with Saitama nodding in compliance. Boros says he knew full well that Saitama was still holding back the entire time they fought, disparaging at how powerful his better truly was with his last breaths, leaving Saitama to solemnly walk away from his fallen enemy in the collapsing fortress. After finally making his way out of the ruined spaceship, Saitama meets with many other S-Class heroes such as Super Alloy Darkshine, Tatsumaki, and Atomic Samurai. After being asked how and why he was on the enemy ship, Genos comes rushing to the scene, concerned for his well-being. After a brief conversation over who Saitama was fighting against, and how prophecies could have come to pass without his help, which Saitama writes off as untrue, Tatsumaki bursts into a fit of anger, interrupting them both. She denounces Saitama for what she perceives as interference in her battle, calling him names. With some coaxing from Saitama, Genos steps up and tells Tatsumaki off, seconds before being telekinetically thrown into some debris by her in outrage of being called a brat, only to be stopped seconds away from attacking Saitama by Bang, who admonishes her for her callous behavior as an S-Class hero. After the invasion, Saitama later destroys Pluton with one punch and angrily yells in frustration at his own overwhelming strength.
OVA 6. After the Dark Matter Thieves' failed invasion, the heroes that participated were invited to the Hot Spring Resort when Zombie Man is found murdered on the floor. Child Emperor states one of the S-Class heroes is the culprit. The scene then flashbacks to the day before the murder had happened, which all heroes are invited to stay overnight at the resort. The heroes enjoyed themselves in the hot spring. Metal Bat wasn't satisfied that some of the heroes like Flashy Flash, Pig God, Watchdog Man, who didn't participate in the battle, got invited as well. As they were also dealing with other monster cases, they get certain rewards as well. After the hot spring, Sitch gathers all the heroes into a celebration of the victory against the invasion. A few of the heroes became drunk after drinking the sake and disgusts Child Emperor, who's later asked by Zombie Man whether or not he's enjoying himself. The scene returns to the murder. Child Emperor gathers some of the evidence and tries to eliminate one and another to find out the truth. One of them being the weapon which stabbed Zombie Man, which is Atomic Samurai's sword. He then interrogates a few other heroes, including Saitama, who asks Zombie Man if he's truly immortal, and finally asks the king for more information. King tells him a brief moment of his witness, and shows a menacing face which scares the Child Emperor a bit. Suddenly, Tatsumaki bursts out of the door and is about to restrain everyone for being suspects of the murder when Zombie Man wakes up. He then reveals that Atomic Samurai's katana was floating with green light surrounding it, similar to Tatsumaki when she was flying. Child Emperor then interrogates Tatsumaki as to what she was doing last night, and predicts that she was drunk from all the sake. She angrily opposes that she knew Zombie Man cannot be killed and wouldn't do such things. Bang steps up and calms her down, and tells everyone that everything's fine now that Zombie Man is fine once again. Everyone then disbands. Sitch then asks Child Emperor to look at footage of a surveillance camera from last night. It shows that Tatsumaki is the culprit, and she was, very drunk. When walking home, Saitama was wondering why Tatsumaki stabbed Zombie Man. Genos knew it was Saitama's fault, but didn't tell him. It reveals that Saitama told Tatsumaki that she's a child and shouldn't drink adult sake. Feeling humiliated, Tatsumaki takes revenge by drinking as much as she could from Saitama's bottle of sake. OVA 7. Saitama meets a group of villains in a public restroom who mistake him for their ally. They introduce themselves to Saitama, but when he reveals he's a hero, they attempt to defeat him. Their attacks misfire and they end up getting saved by Saitama, and start contemplating about how weak their abilities are compared to the likes of Tatsumaki and Volten, who use their respective abilities to earn a living. They have a change of heart, but the group is then attacked by Dirt Earthworm and saved by Saitama again, who sends the monster flying. Genos arrives at the scene after following the evacuation warning, only to find Saitama there alone with the mediocre ability users, who he thinks are troubling his master. They quickly lie about how they just aspire to be heroes and wanted to spar with Saitama, who believes them and decides to train them. Dirt Earthworm observes from afar and is about to leave the area, but is eaten by a random bird.
King Arc. Saitama and Genos are in M City, where they detect King's presence thanks to Genos. Genos wonders why King's there. While they talked, a sudden commotion occurred, where the source is the robot G4, whose primary goal is to eliminate King in the name of the organization. Though Saitama offered to help Genos fight G4, Genos declined in the hopes of making it to the top 10 of S-Class, so Saitama leaves the matter to Genos. While King struggles to choose a name in the video game, Saitama enters King's residence. At first, King didn't notice Saitama at all, responding to him casually when Saitama recommends him a name. Once King finally notices Saitama, Saitama states that the window is open despite it being on the 22nd floor. Eventually, King remembered Saitama from the S-Class meeting and quickly changes the video game to an action game, claiming that he got the wrong game by mistake. As Genos was fighting G4, King just played video games. However, Saitama suddenly starts questioning King's escape from the fight against the robot. As Saitama is going to exit, a giant bird-like monster appears, flying directly towards King's room. Lucky for King, Saitama stopped the monster in time by holding its beak. Saitama gives King the chance to fight the monster, but King is reluctant. Saitama then wonders if King attracted monsters, making King reminisce his past. It is then shown that King really was attracting monsters before, only to be stopped by a mysterious figure from time to time. Because of his appearance at the scenes, people began to treat him as a hero, giving him the hero name King. As King was driven to the point where he teared up, silence entered the room, making him think the monster ate Saitama. However, Saitama begins to notice that all the rumors about King were mere lies, but that didn't make him angry. King concludes that Saitama beat the monster, and also learns that it was Saitama who had saved him countless times, albeit Saitama still had hair at the time. King begins to apologize to Saitama and confesses that he stole the glory from Saitama's accomplishments. Still, Saitama urges King not to quit, and just become strong for real. Saitama leaves, holding no grudges against King, still thinking how he wanted to play games with King. The Blizzard Group arc, Fubuki, along with the Eyelashes and Mountain Ape, goes to Saitama's place to convince him into joining their hero group. However, Saitama's casual refusal urges them to take him down, but backfires as Saitama easily knocks out both Eyelashes and Mountain Ape. She expresses her will to secure her position as the rank 1 in B class, and attacks Saitama with a psychic barrage, but Saitama is unaffected by her ability. Saitama withstands all of her attacks and even patronizes her about being a hero. She asserts her will and continues to attack, this time with a box cutter, but is interrupted by the impact of Genos' attack on Speedosound Sonic. Saitama quickly gets between Fubuki and Genos' attack, which would have probably killed her. Wondering about Genos' presence, she is more surprised that the S-Class hero actually called himself the disciple of the B-Class Saitama. Genos recognizes her, but misinterprets her position as being a failed attempt at taking down Saitama, when in actuality she was caught in his attack. Sonic then proceeds to attack Genos with exploding shurikens, but they do no damage. The two are on equal footing, and eventually Saitama attempts to stop them. Upon observing Saitama's ability while battling Sonic, Fubuki found out that Saitama is too strong, which is far from the norm for his actual ranking. It's revealed that she has an inferiority complex due to her sister's own power. Because of this, she founded the Blizzard Group to surpass her sister, who's a lone wolf. Still, she reveals that she doesn't want to advance to A-Class, due to the A-Class heroes being overwhelmingly powerful, such as the Disciples of Atomic Samurai and Sweet Mask. However, she acknowledges that she can get to the upper ranks of A-class. In a final attempt to persuade Saitama into joining her faction, Fubuki belittles Saitama, saying he won't advance alone and that there are several other heroes out there that are far stronger than he is. However, when King appears demanding Saitama return the video game he borrowed, Fubuki decides to follow him and be a part of his group, noting that the strong are attracted to Saitama, who does not discriminate on strength. Saitama is shortly after given the hero moniker Caped Baldy by the Hero Association.
OVA 9. As Genos and Saitama watch TV, Saitama accidentally knocks him out when trying to reach his potato chips, and Genos wakes up with memory loss. Genos reads some manga left on the floor in Saitama's apartment and picks up various character personalities. For example, one personality is childish, taking in a high-pitched voice. Another is a delinquent personality, when Genos insults Saitama after discovering Saitama is his master. Later, Fubuki arrives at the apartment and learns that Genos has his memory loss from Saitama. The cyborg hero tries to flirt with her and asks her if she wants to go out with him. Fubuki rejects and takes her leave. However, afterward, upon detecting energy levels via his radar, Genos leaves the apartment and rushes towards something he just detected while expressing surprise as his body is moving by itself. He then faces the Blizzard group, who wants to recruit him into becoming their comrade. Genos, having his memory loss, however, tries to convince them that they're mistaking him for someone else shortly before running away from them. Genos later encounters a monster known as the Lord of Mountains. He leads the monster away from civilians as he fights the monster. As his memories have been wiped and he's forgotten how to fight, Genos is beaten down, until the Lord of Mountains shocks Genos with electricity. This gives Genos a memory reboot and he regains his memory. Genos proceeds to fight the monster like normal, easily killing the Lord of Mountains with a single incineration blast. The cyborg hero then returns to Saitama and apologizes for the trouble he's caused. OVA 10. Saitama brings Genos to a tournament for the fighting video game Wild Animals due to the grand prize being 5 million yen. Several locations all over the country are being used as venues, and the battles take place online. Saitama plans to win using virtual reality controls, but his fighting technique is lacking and he quickly loses to a koala avatar in the first round. Gato has also entered the tournament, easily defeating his opponents with his martial arts, and Suryu does the same in another venue. Eventually, Gato and Suryu face off online, and they have a heated battle. However, the speed of Gato's attacks causes the equipment to glitch, freezing his avatar and allowing Suryu to win. The final match of the tournament is between Suryu and the same koala who defeated Saitama earlier. The koala defeats Suryu in seconds, shocking him. The koala's player goes to receive their prize, and it's revealed to be King in disguise.
Hero Hunt Arc. Saitama is playing a video game with King along with Fubuki and Genos, when he is visited by Chiranko, who wanted to know why his master Bang expelled him all of a sudden. Genos tells Chiranko that Bang expelled him to keep him safe, because Gato was actively hunting heroes. Saitama doesn't remember who Chiranko is and has to be reminded by Genos that Chiranko is Bang's one and only disciple. Saitama visits the heroes at the hospital who were bitten by Gato, particularly Moomin Rider, Tank Top Master, and Chiranko, to give him some bananas as treats and to learn more about Gato. He first visits Moomin Rider and Tank Top Master, where he asks to know who exactly Gato is. Now knowing that Gato is a strong villain, he wishes to meet and battle him someday in person. After that, Saitama visits Chiranko to learn more about martial arts and who he could fight to learn more about them. Chiranko offers him a ticket to observe martial arts at the tournament called the Super Fight that he was originally supposed to participate in, but couldn't due to his injuries. Saitama accepts the offer. However, Chiranko advises him not to do something like disguising himself to cover his identity in the tournament. Enticed by the 3 million yen prize for first place, Saitama intends to achieve exactly that. After Saitama finds a wig shop, Gato approaches him and attempts a sneak attack. Gato, thinking that Saitama is after him, tries to hit him with a swift karate chop to the shoulder. However, Saitama is not only unaffected, but also fails to recognize his attacker. Annoyed at Gato for attacking him, Saitama counters Gato's attack by using a karate chop of his own, which knocks out Gato almost instantly, and then carries on shopping for a wig for his disguise. On the following day, Saitama prepares himself for the tournament by putting on the wig. Genos sees what Saitama's doing, and believing that Saitama is trying to make up for his lack of hair, decides to help his master by calling Dr. Kuseno, asking him for a hair transplant for Saitama. After getting the doctor to agree, he asks Saitama if he's free that day, at which point Saitama is finally able to explain that it's a disguise for the tournament, used to make himself look like Chiranko. Saitama then asks Genos to join in to learn what martial arts are really about. Monster Raid Arc. Saitama is in Chiranko's waiting room looking over a list of the contestants of the tournament. He's then greeted by Sourface. Sourface discusses a tournament incident that happened in the past and his reasons for joining the tournament. Lastly, he talks about the day when Gato rampaged through the dojo. Saitama states that what Sourface is doing is pitiful, and claims that he will be the one to put Gato down in the end, unaware that he had already beaten Gato before the tournament, which aggravates Sourface. After the tournament introductions, Saitama is talking with Sourface backstage, when Zakos appears and starts questioning Saitama. Sourface ends up answering some of Zakos' questions. Zakos then reveals that Bang was supposed to be one of the judges and starts mocking the martial arts master. Sourface starts to feel very insulted, but felt even angrier when Chiranko did not seem bothered by Zakos' comments. Saitama replies that he was not invested in the conversation and is only looking forward to fighting Zakos, but notes that Zakos doesn't seem very strong. Saitama asks Sourface what a reverse seed is after Max's and Linlin's match. Zakos tells Saitama their reverse seeds, and Saitama inadvertently angers Zakos by calling him a weakling. In his fight against Zakos, Saitama single-handedly beats him, which surprised everyone in the audience and brought the attention of Suryu. During Max's fight with Suryu, everyone is impressed except Saitama and Bakuzan. Saitama prepares to fight Bakuzan after Sourface's match. As the match is starting, Saitama asks Bakuzan for a taste of Bakuzan's martial arts, which the martial artist fully accepts. However, as Bakuzan is demonstrating his martial arts to Saitama, he accidentally shifts Saitama's wig, causing Saitama to panic and launch Bakuzan into the air. Bakuzan crashes out of the ring into the floor head first. Super Fight Arc. Saitama goes on to fight Sourface and defeats him in a manner similar to Bakuzan, even landing him in a spot next to where Bakuzan was. Saitama is pitted against Chose in the semifinals and defeats him, proceeding to the finals of the Super Fight, where he faces Suryu. During the fight, Suryu uses a strong kick that has enough force to knock off Saitama's wig. During the fight, both express the struggle to find strong enough opponents, to which Saitama agrees and asks Suryu to give him the true experience of martial arts, since he's started to get tired of ending his fights with one punch. As their fight continues, Saitama manages to block some of Suryu's kicks, until he's struck into the air and kicked back down, with Suryu landing on his face. Saitama comes out unscathed, but struggles to keep his wig on while blocking and dodging. Saitama is then dared to punch back, but instead backs away. When Suryu asks Saitama about his routine, Saitama accidentally lets it slip he beats monsters and tries to mend it by saying he wants to join the Hero Association, but is blown off by Suryu. After listening to Suryu's philosophy, Saitama's wig comes off when Suryu kicks his head. Saitama replies back, telling Suryu not to get any stronger if he wants to keep having fun, before throwing a punch, stopping before Suryu's face. After his wig came off, Saitama is disqualified and Suryu is declared the winner. However, Suryu still continues to attack him and doesn't hold back. Suryu uses multiple barrages of many different attacks, but Saitama is completely unfazed. After tanking Suryu's Void Sky Dragon Fist, Saitama concludes that martial arts are just about moving in a cool way. Saitama then tries to mimic Suryu's moves and accidentally launches Suryu out of the ring into the crowd. However, Suryu is still chosen as the winner of the tournament, due to Saitama breaking the rules. The referees then try to catch the running Saitama. While Saitama's out, a lot of monsters take over the ring. Saitama later returns to the arena after hearing Suryu's voice calling for help. Saitama saves Snake from Bakuzan and commends Suryu for holding his own against the monsters. He then proceeds to confront Bakuzan, telling Suryu to leave the rest to him. Suryu is overwhelmed by Saitama's arrival. Bakuzan recognizes Saitama as the opponent who had defeated him in the tournament. The monster unleashes a flurry of blows on Saitama, who is completely unaffected. Saitama tries to recall Bakuzan but fails to do so. The hero then punches Bakuzan, blowing off much of the latter's torso and killing him. Saitama then introduces himself properly to Suryu. Suryu thanks Saitama and warns him of Goketsu and the Monster Association's invasion. Saitama decides to go and fight Goketsu. Suryu tries to prevent him but fails. Moments later, Saitama kills Goketsu with one punch, sending Goketsu's head flying into the arena right in front of Suryu. Suryu decides to become a hero after being inspired by Saitama. Suryu then asks Saitama to accept him as a disciple, but Saitama flatly refuses. Saitama immediately leaves in search of other monsters but is unable to find them. He finds out from the C-Class hero Watergun that the monsters were attacking for 3 to 4 hours before retreating simultaneously. Saitama feels bad for being oblivious to such an emergency and reflects on himself and questions the Monster Association's actions. Recalling today's events, Saitama wonders if his boredom is the cause of him forgetting something very important. He feels disappointed that he didn't get to face Gato. Despite fighting the best of the best martial artists, Saitama gained nothing insightful. On the way, Saitama meets King, who is on the way to buy manga. King and Saitama have a deep discussion on what it means to be a hero. Gato spots King and is about to attack when Saitama kicks him and sends him crashing into a wall. Both Saitama and King are unaware that it's Gato. Saitama continues hoping to meet the hero hunter, who might give him a good fight. Monster Association Arc. Saitama is playing video games with King and manages to put King on the ropes, but is still unable to defeat him, even with a 2-finger handicap. Saitama continues to play video games with King, and as he's about to win, King easily turns the tides and defeats Saitama, much to his frustration. Saitama notices King's emergency transmitter has been beeping. King notes that there's a monster nearby, but informs Saitama that S-class heroes are already at the scene. King then asks about Genos' whereabouts, to which Saitama states he doesn't really know. Saitama is then informed about the Monster Association and decides to head over towards the monster, worrying about Genos' safety. Saitama and King arrive just in time to witness Elder Centipede about to kill Bang, Bomb, and Genos. King lures Elder Centipede in with promises of fighting Blast. When Elder Centipede is lured in, Saitama annihilates the gigantic beast with a serious punch. Genos, after witnessing Saitama's latest display of power, limps over to him, asking Saitama what it is he's lacking, to which Saitama replies, power, much to the exasperation of King.
OVA 12. Child Emperor, Zombie Man, Super Alloy Darkshine, and Metal Bat are dispatched to a forlorn, snowy mountain to hunt a monster. They fail to find anything, so they check into a lodge for the night. There they meet Saitama and Genos, who also got stuck on the mountain and had to check in, and Flashy Flash, who's trying to relax on a vacation. Speed of Sound Sonic is also training on the mountain and decides to hunt Saitama once he realizes he's present. However, he stays outside in the blizzard for too long and freezes, losing his balance and crashing through a window. The heroes tie him up, but Sonic still plans to kill Saitama. Sonic easily escapes the rope and tries to attack Saitama from under the floorboards, but is stopped by Genos, and their encounter destroys the room. The dust irritates Saitama's nose, and he sneezes with enough force to blow open every door and window in the lodge. The power goes out, followed by a sudden explosion. The heroes grab a flashlight and head to the den, finding the room destroyed and Zombie Man unconscious. Child Emperor can't locate any external heat signatures, so he deduces that the culprit must be in the lodge. After recovering, Zombie Man tells what little he knows, and Sonic enters the room to prove his innocence. The group finds that they all have good alibis, completely forgetting about Flashy Flash upstairs. They assume the monster must be responsible, but after the Hero Association tells them that it's just a bear monster called Bruinado, they decide it can't be. Once Child Emperor sees Saitama sneeze again, he deduces the following. The abundance of heaters in the lodge dried out the interior, Genos and Sonic's fight kicked up flammable dust, Saitama's sneeze pushed the dust into the den, all the electricity being used caused the breaker to trip, and Zombie Man's lighter caused the dust to detonate. The group is relieved at the conclusion. Suddenly, Bruinado crashes through the front door. However, he is quickly defeated by the abundance of S-class heroes. Upstairs, Flashy Flash continues to use all the lodge's power as he relaxes.
Monster Association Arc. Saitama brings the wounded heroes back to his apartment to rest and plays a monster fighting game with King. Fubuki arrives at the apartment and explains to the group the current state of alert of the Hero Association thanks to the Monster Association. Unfortunately, most of the group is still too badly injured after the fight against Gato and Elder Centipede. King predictably makes excuses and cops out. Thus, Saitama grows increasingly annoyed with Gato, decides to put his costume back on, and deal with Gato himself. He also plans on picking up cabbage while he's out. During his trip to find Gato, Saitama eats at a restaurant where Gato also eats at the same time, but he forgot to bring his wallet. As a result, he falls into a panic, unable to call Genos for help since Genos is still busy fixing his body. Suddenly, Fubuki comes to offer her help to find Gato in exchange for 70% of the credit. Furthermore, she also proposes to help him stand at the top 5 in B class, as she still believes Saitama cares about his ranking. At the same time, what Fubuki doesn't know is that Saitama deliberately orders a large french fries dish to trick Fubuki into paying for his meal. As Gato commits dine and dash in the restaurant, Saitama grabs the opportunity to run and capture him, leaving Fubuki stunned. When Saitama manages to catch up with Gato, he gives Gato a warning about eating without paying, and then leaves the scene because he's grateful for Gato for getting him out of the same circumstance. However, this enrages Gato, as he thinks Saitama takes pity on him and tries to hit Saitama. Unfortunately for Gato, Saitama knocks him out for the 3rd time and runs away without realizing he found and easily defeated the person he was looking for. Believing he failed to find Gato, Saitama returns to his apartment where he discovers that King, Bang, Bomb, and Genos are still there. To his horror, Saitama also comes to the realization that he left his groceries behind at the restaurant in addition to losing his wallet at the store. Fortunately for Saitama, a miffed Fubuki arrives at his apartment with his cabbage, demanding he apologize for leaving her with the bill. Shortly afterwards, however, Genos' savior, Dr. Kuseno, arrives in an armored suit. Kuseno explains that he is concerned for Genos, having received his rescue signal just after he put him back together again. Dr. Kuseno reveals he has a gift for Saitama, a packet of high-quality beef, which Saitama decides to cook with the cabbage Fubuki just brought with her, in a hot pot. He ends up inadvertently cooking for the entire group. When the food is ready to serve, everyone goes after it at once, splattering the hot pot all over the apartment and fighting each other for the scraps. Saitama loses his patience and orders everyone to leave. Bang looks to Saitama for advice on raising pupils before the bald hero goes to check on King, who got knocked out during the earlier scuffle. The night passes and everyone except King returns home after the dinner. King wakes up in the morning and takes Saitama's trash out on his way back. Saitama decides to read a book, although he is disturbed by the loud noises coming from Gato and Overgrown Rover's battle underneath his neighborhood. He checks on the TV for any news, but the screen is static. Eventually, tired of the noise, Saitama leaves his house after brushing his teeth and suiting up to investigate the noise. His investigation leads him to a manhole where he heard the noises from, though by now they had stopped. By the time the Hero Association begins their coordinated attack on the Monster Association's headquarters, Saitama is also exploring the tunnels himself. As Saitama explores the Monster Association base, the passage he's in is flooded with water due to damage from the fight between Child Emperor and Phoenix Man. Saitama eventually runs into Overgrown Rover, who attacks Saitama. Saitama deals a swift blow to the giant canine, knocking it unconscious and sending a massive tremor throughout the entire underground base. He's also attacked by Yan, who fails to do any damage to him and quickly retreats. Soon after, Saitama finds himself at a large gorge, where the Monster King Orochi climbs up from the darkness to face him. Orochi begins to introduce himself, but Saitama cuts him off and tells him his expectations are already low enough and he shouldn't bother. Orochi notices Overgrown Rover is still nearby and is just waking up, so he orders him to kill Saitama. However, when Rover sees Saitama's face, it flees instead, shocking Orochi. The two then share a brief yet incredibly destructive scuffle, but in the end, Saitama comes out victorious. When the defeated Orochi asks him what happened in disbelief, Saitama explains that he just got punched. Saitama continues walking around as he searches for the leader of the monsters to talk to him about the earthquakes and noises under his apartment, defeating every monster that crosses his path. Unfortunately, he doesn't realize that he just killed the Monster King. He bumps into Flashy Flash along the way, who mistakes him for a monster and attacks him. Flash is shocked by Saitama's ability to dodge and defend against his strikes, and finally recognizes him as Genos' B-class hero sidekick. Flash tells Saitama about the Hero Association's plans and tries to discourage him from going any further, but Saitama deduces that if he follows Flash, he might be able to meet up with more monsters. Flash speeds off to try to shake him, however Saitama easily keeps up. Saitama and Flash run in circles searching for monsters. Saitama suggests contacting the other heroes for help, but Flash confidently responds that he doesn't require any assistance, and neither do the other S-class heroes. Sick and tired of being lost, Saitama punches through the walls until Saitama and Flash discover a monster using a toilet. Saitama and Flash force the monster to lead them to the Monster King through a minecart. The monster estimates that it will take 10 minutes to reach the Monster King. As they continue on foot, Saitama, Flash, and the monster are all attacked by Orochi's lurching biomass, which threatens to absorb them. The flesh grasps at Saitama, but can't seem to grip his shiny bald head. Sensitive about it, Saitama angrily punches the flesh away, indirectly causing a distraction that helps Tatsumaki escape from Psychos and Orochi elsewhere. Tatsumaki uses this distraction to rescue the other heroes that partook in the invasion, with the exception of Zombie Man and Flashy Flash, and since Flashy Flash is with Saitama, that meant he wasn't lifted away with the others as well. Rubble ends up nearly burying him, but he lifts up his leg to stop the debris. He and Flashy Flash are left in the darkness together. As Monoko lifts up a large rock in an attempt to escape, Saitama and Monoko spot Flashy Flash trapped under rubble. Startled by this, Monoko's eye lights up, which gives heroes visibility of their surroundings. As the fight against Psychos and Orochi continues above them, Saitama and Monoko continue to work to free Flashy Flash from the collapsed tunnel. Saitama remarks about how hungry he is, to which Monoko agrees with as well. Monoko says that tightening her belt immensely reduces the feeling of hunger, which an initially doubtful Saitama tries as well, saying that it actually works somewhat. Saitama discusses with Monoko on what the hero will cook when he gets home, much to Flashy Flash's dismay at their current state. Eventually, only Flashy Flash's arm is stuck, as it is stuck under something heavy. Saitama finds a cube that, unbeknownst to him, resembles the one Blast is holding in Tatsumaki's flashback. Not knowing what it is, Saitama drops the cube, which is revealed to be extremely heavy as it heavily impacts and sinks into the ground. Soon after, a large tremor is felt once again as Tatsumaki lifts the entire spire of the Monster Association in preparation to finish off Orochi. As things clear, there's a hole in the wall where Flashy Flash's arm was stuck under, and it's revealed that Flashy Flash's katana, Insta-Kill, was broken due to being stuck in the spire. Saitama voices his frustration as he believes that Flashy Flash meant that Saitama would break his arm if he wasn't careful enough, not his katana. Monoko sees a chance to escape and tries to go through the hole that revealed itself in the wall. However, she, as well as Saitama and Flashy Flash, peer into the hole but don't see anything. even after using Monaco's multiple eye modes. A mysterious voice from somewhere suddenly speaks to the three of them, offering to grant them power if they're worthy, but confiscate them if they're not. Suddenly, a man teleports into the cave, asking if they had touched the cube. Saitama asks the man who he is, wondering if he's a hero. Upon the disembodied voice identifying the man as Blast, Saitama is confused, appearing to be unfamiliar with the #1 hero's reputation. When Blast easily dodges Flashy Flash's test attack, Saitama wonders if it's the ninja's hobby to attack everyone he meets. Blast then offers to take all of them up to the surface. Saitama asks him if he teleported into the cave, to which he responds he did. Blast then asks why Monaco is with them, pointing out that she doesn't seem to like their prisoner and quickly becomes vigilant, but goes back to his easygoing self after Saitama calls her their flashlight. Blast then teleports the two heroes and the monster up to the surface, requesting them to send his regards to Sich and Tatsumaki as he activates his ability. After being teleported to the surface along with the other two, Saitama notices that Garo is near him but quickly rushes towards Genos. As he's seeing a damaged and limbless Genos, he asks if Garo is the one who beat him so badly, which the cyborg answers it was due to him battling a Monster Association executive member. King soon comes up to Saitama, stating that he's glad to see him and telling him that Genos did a great job protecting Tatsumaki. While Saitama compliments Genos, the cyborg tells him that he wasn't able to self-destruct when the time called for it, asking his master whether he's actually become stronger. Saitama puts his hand on Genos' core and responds that if he didn't explode, it means that part of him has gotten stronger at least. Genos appreciates these words and says that it's all thanks to Saitama himself and Dr. Kuseno, with Saitama simply denying him and saying that he didn't really do anything for the disciple. Later on, Saitama is helping the other injured heroes, as Blast teleports to Tatsumaki, who has just been approached by God. Saitama is surprised to see him again. Blast then leaves Tatsumaki in King's care before teleporting away again, much to the confusion of both Saitama and the former. Suddenly, a big earthquake occurs, with Satan, the source of it, appearing, and soon evil natural water, who has become one with the ocean and grown exponentially in size. While the two newly emerged threats are fighting Garo, Saitama rushes towards the massive aquatic monster and strikes it with a series punch, dispersing it as well as splitting the entire ocean. Immediately after, he notices that a floating aircraft carrier is exposed and is incapable of saving itself and all the people on board. Saitama then lands on it, and as he's unable to carry it due to having no land to stand on, he instead decides to use the vessel's deck as an impromptu surfboard, surfing on it and saving the crew from gargantuan waves. As Saitama guides the ship from crashing, he sees the death of Sage Centipede from Garo's attack, while then noticing King and many other heroes. Quickly stopping the aircraft carrier from crashing into them and leaping away, Saitama soon lands where Garo himself is at. Due to Garo's appearance, Saitama admits to having no idea who he is and simply listens to Garo's words on how he'd destroy the Hero Association while declaring himself a monster, much to Saitama's confusion, who saw Garo saving people. Saitama then decides to leave after believing Garo isn't a monster, while annoyed at how after trying to complain about the noise below, his house is wrecked, and being ticked that he'd destroy the world to Garo's fear. Garo tries to attack him only for Saitama to notice and unintentionally punch him, which causes Garo to remember who Saitama is, while the hero also begins recalling Garo's own name. Garo then begins battling Saitama, who dodges and counters many of the human monster's attacks. While Garo manages to push Saitama around and even attack him, Saitama endures the attacks with no difficulties and shatters Garo's hand, which soon regenerates. Confused by the fighting, Saitama proceeds to ask what Garo is even doing, only to get annoyed when Garo keeps assaulting him, making the hero punch him a great distance away to where Tario and the other heroes are at. After seeing Garo then speaking to Tario, Saitama finally remembers who Garo is and begins reprimanding him a little, and then dares Garo to attack him, to Garo's anger, who punches him. Handling the blow, Saitama sends Garo away with a slap, while reassuring Tario that he won't get a scratch and will stop Garo without killing him. Saitama then catches up to Garo, asking what he even wants, as Saitama realizes he hurts heroes but saves others, to Garo's denial. The human monster begins another assault and manages to even evade Saitama's blows, to his confusion, figuring it must be martial arts, with Garo then claiming that this is why Saitama would lose, delivering the hero many deadly blows from his combo attacks that destroy much of the surrounding area. Saitama shows himself alright. Before he can attack, the hero sees many people bursting from an underground hatch, asking who they were. Learning they have been trapped with the association workers, they thank Saitama, only for the hero to say Garo was the one who saved them. Telling them to leave, Saitama playfully compliments Garo, to the latter's annoyance, who begins attacking him once more. Garo evolves further and slams Saitama into a volcano, which, unintentionally, saves the homes of countless people, which Saitama notes that Garo has a hero's instinct and is similar to King. Soon enough, Garo evolves even more and releases an immense attack that once again unfazed Saitama, who proceeds to retaliate against him
with his consecutive normal punches. After that, he punches Gato so hard that he ends up crashing into some mountains and into a massive puddle. Gato refuses to give up, slowly gets up, and charges him once more, although Saitama punches him into the air, causing Gato's human form to be launched out of his monster body, seemingly defeating the hero hunter. However, Saitama senses something as Gato falls from the sky, having received powers from God, and takes a fighting stance to prepare for another fight. With his newly created all-life eradication fist, Gato hits Saitama with his nuclear fission, which generates massive nuclear explosions before copying his consecutive normal punches with Mode Saitama, and using it against Saitama himself, who responds with his own consecutive normal punches. Both of them meet blow for blow and cancel out the clash by simultaneously punching each other in the face. While Gato explains how he can copy an opponent's techniques and improve upon them, Saitama nonetheless is only frustrated that he's got a scratch. Gato then prepares his Gamma Ray Burst, an extremely powerful energy blast, which prompts Saitama to jump high into the air in order for the attack not to hit the earth. The energy blast completely engulfs Saitama, sending him flying far away from his position. With Saitama's temporary absence, Gato lands on a pile of debris and confronts many heroes of the Hero Association. Sometime later, when Saitama finally returns, he's depressed at the fact that he's too late to save Genos and other heroes who have all been killed by Gato, with Blast nearby warning him to stay away, unaware of his strength. Having caught Genos' core from Gato and seen the lifeless corpse of his disciple, Saitama questions if he truly has a hero's intuition. Now enraged, he unleashes a mighty serious punch towards Gato, who responds with a serious punch of his own, having copied Saitama once again using Mode Saitama. Blast, fearing that the earth will be destroyed, teleports Saitama and Gato into space before their fists collide. When their fists finally make contact and create a serious punch, the shockwave of energy released from their punches proves too much even for Blast to handle, although the latter is still trying to somehow alter the vector of the destructive energy away from the earth. At this moment, 3 of Blast's companions emerge behind him, and with all of their efforts, they successfully deflect the destructive energy of Saitama's and Gato's mighty punches away from the planet. Saitama and Gato are sent to Io, one of Jupiter's moons, by the recoil from the collision of their punches. Despite the lack of air in the surrounding harsh environment, Saitama is unfazed, simply wondering about his current location. He then states that he can now fight unrestrained against a strong opponent, to the surprise of Gato. Although his wish of fighting a powerful opponent seems to have come true, Saitama isn't excited in the slightest. He initially intends to put Genos' core inside his clothes, but fearing that the core might fall out, he instead decides to hold it tightly with his left hand. As Gato is talking about finding a way to get back to Earth, Saitama cuts him off, declaring that beating him comes first, and that he will only need one hand to do so. The two of them resume their battle on the moon of Jupiter. Gato opens a hyperspace portal beneath Saitama in an attempt to teleport him away, but to his shock, Saitama simply kicks the portal away before punching Gato in the face, which sends him flying off the Galilean satellite. Gato quickly opens a portal behind Saitama and transfers back, trying to attack the hero, although Saitama is faster and redirects the portal by grabbing it before immediately landing a punch on Gato that causes him to crash on the ground and telling the hero hunter to stop using his tricks and instead fight him with his martial arts. In response to Saitama's remark, Gato lands himself through many of his opened hyperspace gates surrounding the hero and begins a series of his martial arts techniques, which he synergistically utilizes against the Caped Baldy before ending his combo with his nuclear fission gravity knuckle. With Saitama taking his full assault, Gato claims that his attacks come from all directions and are unavoidable, but is surprised to see Saitama emerge unharmed, who declares he can also do the same before performing his serious table flip, which flips massive amounts of the moon's ground thousands of meters up in the air. Surrounded by innumerable amounts of debris, Gato is attacked by Saitama, who uses his omnidirectional series punch to create many afterimages and assaults him from all directions. Gato attempts to flee through a hyperspace portal, but to his shock, Saitama appears on the other side of it and punches him out before repeatedly pummeling the human monster across Io. Gato is awed at Saitama's endless strength, though he quickly copies his strength again before they both punch each other in the face simultaneously. As their fight intensifies, Saitama overwhelms Gato, even copying and using the hero hunter's techniques against him, to Gato's surprise. While the two continue trading blows, Gato is shocked to realize that Saitama is rapidly growing in strength, and despite his attempts to continuously copy the hero's power, he is getting left in the dust. It's then revealed by the narrator that Saitama's strength was continuing to grow, and it even rises at an exponential rate upon experiencing intense emotions. Saitama catches a punch from Gato and unleashes a serious sneeze that narrowly misses him and ends up devastating Jupiter, terrifying Gato and launching both of them off the moon. While they're in outer space, Gato hits Saitama with his nuclear fission, knocking the hero in the opposite direction, and teleports to outside Earth's atmosphere through a portal, only to see Saitama appear right behind him, having propelled himself with a fart to catch up to the hero hunter. Saitama praises Gato's ability to open portals before punching him, skyrocketing down into the surface of the Earth, right where they were before. Finally defeated, Gato asks why Saitama won't kill him, to which he responds it's because he's a hero, and it's also Tario's final request to stop Gato without killing him. Looking around, Gato screams in despair upon seeing Tario, who has died of the cosmic radiation emitted from him. He attempts to rush to the boy, but has his direction confused, which is pointed out by Saitama. Gato then stumbles and falls to the ground, while Saitama asks if Gato was affected by something since falling from the sky. Gato responds even if that's true, it's because Gato's spirit was weak, before lamenting that despite having defeated him, Saitama still says, "I'm not cut out to be a hero." Repentant of his actions, Gato decides to teach Saitama a time travel technique in order to undo what has occurred. When Saitama observes Gato begin his time travel technique, God kills the hero hunter and takes back his power. Despite this, Saitama still manages to instantly master the technique that works by manipulating all particles inside his body and begins to travel backwards in time, bringing the core of the future deceased Genos with him. After returning to the moment of Gato appearing in front of many heroes on the surface, Saitama punches the hero hunter in the face, causing him to lose his divine powers and thus preventing the ominous future from happening again. He's soon forced to merge with his past self and loses his memories of the ominous future, although the core of Genos is still in his hand. Saitama is shocked to see the depleted core as Genos, now alive, rushes towards him. Seeing that the core in Saitama's hand resembles his own core, Genos tries making it function by plugging a subconnector to it. Instantly after doing so, the memories contained in the core that had crossed time and space with Saitama flow into the cyborg and momentarily stun him. Genos soon asserts that the core is indeed his, and wonders if those memories from it are from a future that could have happened. He then tries to tell everything that happened in the ominous future to Saitama in a lengthy way, but Saitama is confused by Genos' explanation and simply tells him to stop. And with that, Genos simply tells Saitama that he's a true hero. Saitama and Genos meet up with the rest of the heroes surrounding Gato. They talk about what to do with Gato, but Genos believes that since Saitama defeated him, he should be the one to decide. As the heroes try and decide, a Mai Mask goes in for the attack, but is stopped by Tario, who believes that they shouldn't hurt Gato. Tario believes that Gato is a true hero, which Saitama agrees to because Gato saved King and Genos, something that Saitama had been meaning to thank Gato for. With that, Gato leaps into the air and escapes. Saitama and Genos are in the debris field looking for something, while Black Sperm watches from a distance. Their search is successful and they find the monster pooch that had been attacking them earlier. Black Sperm starts to follow Saitama, having nowhere else to go, and begs to live with Saitama. Saitama takes Black Sperm and the pooch to the Heroes Association headquarters, but they're attacked by several robots as part of the new defense system. Saitama easily disposes of these robots and meets up with King to give him something he found in the rubble, King's Game Boy. Neo Hero Saga Psychic Sisters Arc. Saitama is formally promoted to A-Class rank 39, and in the process granting him a new, much more luxurious apartment in A City by the Hero Association. Over the next few days, Saitama collects what remains of his belongings from the rubble of Z City, where he encounters and ends up unwittingly adopting the now much smaller Black Sperm and overgrown Rover as pets. Saitama makes his way back to A City, where he and his new would-be pets are attacked by A City's robotic security system. After being questioned by security on how the robots were destroyed, Saitama is escorted back to his apartment by King. There, Saitama plays host to his 3 seniors in the apartment complex, Butterfly Deluxe, Chain and Toad, and Forte. After his musical fighting style is insulted by Saitama, Forte challenges Saitama to a fight. Saitama agrees on the condition that if he loses, he has to take in the 2 former monsters that followed Saitama home. Saitama has his easiest victory yet when the Blizzard group hits Forte with their car in the parking lot during their blind rush. Entrusting the 2 formerly dangerous monsters to Butterfly Deluxe and Chain and Toad, Saitama joins Fubuki as she makes her way into A City's prison for monsters. Leaving her employees on ground level, Fubuki explains that they're going to go and see Psychos, the leader of the now disbanded Monster Association. Apparently, when she was in high school with Fubuki, Psychos developed the ability to see the future. One day, however, Psychos saw something so horrible that it made her want to wipe out all of humanity, and now Fubuki wants to know what it is she saw. Unfortunately, Tatsumaki arrives on the scene, intending to kill Psychos for her earlier defeat, and the 2 sisters end up in a clash of psychic powers over her life, while Saitama fights the other monsters who are trying to escape in the ensuing riot. After dealing with the monsters, Saitama returns to the ground level where he stops Tatsumaki from hurting Fubuki any further. The 2 soon clash as Saitama takes the fight out to the desert that surrounds the city. Tatsumaki, however, is soon met with immense frustration when her telekinetic powers fail to rip Saitama apart, smash him to pieces, or even stop her from calling her small. The pair's fighting takes them all the way to H City and back, Along the way, they're mistaken for a dragon-level threat by the Hero Association, nearly crushing a family that was moving to A City, killing a dragon-level monster that was destroying H City without even realizing it, and taking down an entire criminal gang without much effort. Unfortunately for her, Tatsumaki discovers that her already severe injuries from the Monster Association raid have been further aggravated from fighting Saitama, and the two of them decide to put the fight on hold for the time being. That said, Tatsumaki thinks she has the last laugh after burying Saitama under several hundred feet of earth. Later on, during Tatsumaki's second confrontation with the Blizzard group, Saitama digs himself out and interrupts another spat between the sisters. There, observing Tatsumaki's severe injuries, he points out to the Blizzard group that this is their one and only chance to make Tatsumaki leave them alone for good, to which they declare their intentions to get strong enough so that not even Tatsumaki in full health can stop them. As soon as Tatsumaki vacates the scene, Saitama shortly follows suit, intercepting her to speak with her. Predictably, she rebukes his approach, denouncing him for hiding his true strength, although Saitama speaks to the contrary, giving an eye-roll response to her boast that she could take care of him in 5 seconds if in perfect health. Saitama asks Tatsumaki why she's in the Hero Association if she hates human contact so much. Tatsumaki goes on to state her reasons, only to retract them soon after flying off again, leaving him to wonder what the term blah means. Neo Heroes Introduction Arc. Saitama later arrives at the Hero Association headquarters, where he sees Forte, Butterfly Deluxe, and Chain and Toad. Saitama tells the three heroes not to come into his house without permission. Surprisingly, Forte apologizes to Saitama for his rude behavior earlier. Seeing Saitama's current slate, Forte offers his clothes and shoes, which grosses Saitama out. It's revealed that Forte saw Saitama from the hospital room, fighting. He tells Butterfly Deluxe and Chain and Toad that they are no match for Saitama. The three heroes then decide to be accepted by Saitama. After Genos defeats the Forest King, Genos challenges Saitama to a duel, which Saitama accepts. When they fight, however, all that Genos manages to do is temporarily blind Saitama before he stops, claiming that the best he could do is get Saitama dirty. Saitama admits that he can't tell if Genos has gotten stronger, only a lot brighter, which only further depresses Genos. Genos comes to the realization that Saitama wasn't even remotely threatened by his attack just now. Genos explains to Saitama that when he first agreed to take him on as a pupil, Saitama told him to try and climb to the top of the Hero Association, but that has gotten him nowhere. Genos also explains that the Hero Association is dying. At this point, the public's opinion of the Hero Association is that it takes their money to pay increasingly incompetent people who barely held back the monster threat and usually cause as much, if not more, property damage than the monsters they fight. Another group, calling themselves the Neo Heroes, has been created in response to this public outrage. The Neo Heroes claim to have taken a look at the mistakes made by the Hero Association and seek to correct and improve upon the formula, claiming to have 2,000 possible candidates selected, including pro-heroes from the Hero Association itself. Genos' question is, if Saitama thinks they should transfer over to the Neo Heroes, as he feels with a higher standard set, he might become stronger. The subject changes over to why Genos is obsessed with becoming stronger. Saitama voices a thought that had been bothering him for a while, that he could have simply killed the cyborg Genos had been hunting for the past 5 years. Genos admits that it's a possibility, but he's still preparing for the day that the bout finally comes, before changing the subject back and asking Saitama if he wishes to transfer over to the Neo Heroes, to which Saitama says no. Upon hearing this, Genos says he won't either. Arriving back at HQ, the pair discover Forte as he finishes constructing the doghouse for Black Sperm and Rover. Saitama introduces Forte as his neighbor, and seeing as how Saitama doesn't wish to move out of his cramped little apartment, and he can't move in with him, Genos takes Forte's apartment. Saitama and King are once again playing games, until Fubuki knocks on the door offering Saitama a chance to join the Blizzard group and get free ultimate beef. Saitama immediately declines by closing the door on her. He opens the door once more and tells Fubuki he hates door-to-door sales. Saitama's monster pooch Rover goes on and grabs the ultimate beef out of Fubuki's hands, and Saitama thanks her for feeding Rover. Cruel Dragon Arc. Saitama accidentally gets into a conflict between two parties regarding an ancient dragon that was sealed long ago. He soon releases the dragon from its seal in order to eliminate it and end the conflict between the two parties that lasted 800 years. Afterwards, Saitama plays video games with King, and before long, Flashy Flash pays a visit, suggests Saitama become his disciple, and asks for his assistance in finding Monoko in order to gather clues about God. Saitama doesn't take this seriously, and a conflict is about to happen between the two. Ninja's Arc. Flashy Flash gives Saitama 30 minutes. If Flashy Flash wins the fight, then Saitama will submit to becoming his pupil. But if Saitama wins, then Flashy Flash will leave him alone. Flashy Flash gives it his all, but Saitama outmaneuvers his attacks and almost lands a punch of his own before Genos interrupts the battle and tells both heroes about a monster warning going off. The three heroes head for the monster's location and find Sonic there, who's surprised to see that Saitama and Flashy Flash are together. Flashy Flash and Genos dispose of the monsters while Saitama slams Sonic into the earth, creating a hole in the ground. Once they regroup, Saitama tells everyone that he doesn't want to teach or be taught or butt heads with anyone. Genos, Flashy Flash, and Sonic believe that Saitama simply lost confidence in himself. Annoyed, Saitama heads to King's place to play video games. He asks King if he's seen Monoko, a monster he had been looking for, to which King responds that he had, and in about 3 panels, Saitama finds Monoko. Saitama and Flashy Flash meet up with Blast, who's conducting an experiment to see if they can split monster cells to return monsterized humans to normal. Saitama notices that the monsters that they're experimenting on were participants from the martial arts tournament. While the experiment is going on, Flashy Flash asks Blast about the connection between God and the ninja village that he had grown up in. Blast tells Flashy Flash and Saitama about Empty Void, the ninja village leader. After getting a letter from Speed of Sound Sonic, they decide to confront Empty Void together, and Flash meets with Sonic. Alright, for the next section, we're gonna go over parts of the original webcomic, which means that it hasn't been adapted into the actual manga yet, nor has it been adapted into the anime, of course. So, if you're confused, the original webcomic is the one drew. You can kind of see his style with the Mob Psycho manga. I don't think that was redrawn. Alright, original webcomic. Supreme Hero Arc. Saitama encounters Rangor, one of the 9 warriors of the Dragon Alliance, and defeats him with a single punch. He then comes across a group of people calling themselves the Saints. They explain how by defeating Rangor, Saitama has protected the Cruel Dragon Seal and saved the world, and then tell the legend of Cruel Dragon, a creature that descended upon Earth, taking countless lives and scorching the land. They explain that ancient warriors managed to weaken the dragon with costly sacrifices, allowing seal masters to seal away the essence of the dragon in 9 seal stones, which are now scattered in temples across the land. This brought rise to 2 groups, the protectors of the seal stones, the Saints, and a group hoping to resurrect the dragon, Deathbone. The 2 groups have been in conflict for 800 years, but Deathbone recently increased their activity, taking advantage of the recent frequent monster incidents. One of the Saints holds down a member of Deathbone who begins to monologue as he loses consciousness, until Saitama throws a bucket of water on his face. Saitama eventually resolves that if the dragon will resurrect at some point, it would be smart to resurrect it promptly to defeat it quicker. Much to the Saints' dismay, Saitama picks up the Deathbone member and flees from the Saints members chasing after him, who helps him locate all 9 seals. After the Deathbone member conducts the ceremony, the Cruel Dragon resurrects, and Saitama defeats it with a single punch. Saitama then picks out groceries. Later that night, Saitama meets up with Genos on a street leading towards former A City. Genos is visibly damaged and explains that it's from a battle against a powerful demon-level monster when Saitama asks, and requests another spar with Saitama. He then mentions that Dr. Kuseno has shown great interest in Saitama's physical abilities and wishes to collect his data. Saitama asks Genos what he bought, and Genos lists the items, adding the fact that he got them for cheap. Saitama is impressed by this and compliments him by telling him that he's mastered the trick to buying stuff, even admitting to missing out on some AAA batteries at half price. Suddenly, the 2 encounter Sweet Mask, who offers to meet up for a cup of tea at noon the following day, as he wants to discuss something in person. Genos refuses the offer, believing that Sweet Mask is talking to him, but it's then revealed that he was speaking to Saitama. The next day, Saitama and Sweet Mask are sat on a table in a cafe. A waiter approaches them and asks what they would like. Saitama orders a Coke and Sweet Mask orders a lemonade, but Sweet Mask orders a ginger ale for Saitama instead of a Coke, which irks him. Later, Sweet Mask has lunch with Saitama and tries to teach him how to be a good hero. Saitama ignores most of what Sweet Mask has to say, so Sweet Mask decides to move somewhere else to continue his talk. They walk to a carnival and sit in a Ferris wheel cabin. Now able to speak in secrecy, Sweet Mask reveals his past to Saitama. He explains that he was born an unsightly human, so he adhered to strict moral principles to compensate for his ugliness. He started working as a hero, but his overwhelming loathing for his looks resulted in a transformation that turned him into a monster with a beautiful face. Sweet Mask then tells Saitama that he's the one person he found worthy of carrying on his legacy and becoming the ideal hero. Saitama turns down the offer and jumps out of the cabin to meet Genos. Suddenly, a commotion on the fairgrounds catches Sweet Mask's attention. The cause of the ruckus is Pesky Clown, who had killed several guards that had attempted to stop him. The monster swings his mallet to hit a civilian, but Sweet Mask shows up and stops the attack. The 2 engage in combat. Sweet Mask has the upper hand at the start of the battle and destroys 3 of the monster's life balloons. However, the monster draws power from the attention of the crowd and transforms, becoming powerful enough to overpower the hero. Sweet Mask then decides to unveil his monster side in order to defeat Pesky Clown. Sweet Mask then returns from the rubble to engage the monster again. Outside of the fairground, Saitama runs into Genos, who's on his way to the monster sighting to aid Sweet Mask. At the scene of the battle, Sweet Mask has successfully overpowered Pesky Clown using his monster form. The civilians still gathered there now catch sight of Sweet Mask's unsightly face and begin to question if he's actually a monster. Pesky Clown uses the worldwide attention Sweet Mask is receiving to increase his power even more, giving him a gruesome transformation, and the two engage in combat once more. The two fight desperately until Sweet Mask finally dispatches Pesky Clown with a brutal punch. Now that the people can clearly view Sweet Mask's true appearance, he's berated as people begin to fear him. Bluefire arrives with the intent to support Sweet Mask in battle, only to not be able to recognize him until he's pointed out by a member of the crowd. Like the others, he's fearful of Sweet Mask and classifies him as a monster. Saitama is the next hero to arrive and catches a rock thrown at Sweet Mask. Instead of berating him like the others, Saitama supports him. Sweet Mask doesn't acknowledge this and wants Saitama to kill him, hoping that Saitama will be seen as a hero for defeating him. Saitama ignores the request and continues supporting Sweet Mask. Sweet Mask attempts to attack Saitama, latching his hand around Saitama's head in order to show his strength. Saitama jumps away, carrying Sweet Mask with him. The news of Sweet Mask's true appearance continues to spread, and he becomes more and more disliked by the general public. The news is regarded as the beginning of the Hero Association's collapse. Later, a Hero Association scouting team makes its way to Suicho's dojo. They're met by Suiko, Suicho's granddaughter and Shiryu's younger sister. She asks the scouting group if she can join the Hero Association as an S-class hero and comes back with them. At the Neo Heroes headquarters, several Neo leaders converse about the situation surrounding Sweet Mask. Webegaza is emotionally impacted by the situation, remarking that she wanted to defeat him herself. McCoy figures that the Hero Association is beginning to fall apart, and that the Neo Heroes are officially on the same authoritative level as them. Darkshine and Metalbat wonder where Blue is, considering he's the number one in the Neo Heroes and hasn't shown himself. It's revealed that he left to pursue the case surrounding Sweet Mask. Neo Heroes Uprising Arc. In the Hero Association headquarters, 3 heroes are considering joining the Neo Heroes after being scouted. They discuss the benefits of the Neo Heroes compared to the benefits of the Hero Association, and come to the conclusion that the Neo Heroes would be much better for them personally. Rover and Black Sperm are present, and Black Sperm thinks about the current situation, that 2 rival Hero Associations are combating instead of focusing on working together to fight monsters. He remarks that the current situation will be beneficial for the 2 monsters, with the effectiveness of heroes slowly declining. Saitama approaches the 3 heroes and is asked if he's been scouted by the Neo Heroes. Suddenly, a group of heroes discontent with their hero names approaches Saitama and asks to have him as a leader because of his unfortunate hero name. Black Sperm continues to ponder, using the newly arrived group as proof that the hero system is close to failing. Suiko arrives at the Hero Association headquarters and is welcomed in. While being led to the training grounds, she's told that her brother Suryu won the Super Fight tournament and that the Hero Association wants him as a hero as well. Suiko says that that isn't necessary and that she's stronger than Suryu. In the training grounds, Suiko demonstrates her strength by easily destroying a training robot. She's disappointed that this feat landed her in A-class and not S-class. At the Neo Heroes headquarters, Suryu is being escorted by McCoy. He seems to not take what McCoy is saying very seriously about what he should do as a hero. Instead, he simply understands that he needs to defeat monsters and that he'll get paid. Outside of the headquarters, Genos and Saitama spar in order for Genos to collect battle data from the fight. Genos questions himself what happened between Saitama and Sweet Mask after the 2 left the amusement park. Genos remarks that the look on Saitama's face is different from the usual. It turns out that Saitama was just thinking about the Hero Name Victims Association. Later, Suiryu is introduced to the Neo leaders, and McCoy tells them that Suiryu will be a leader. Next, each of the Neo leaders are similarly introduced. Raiden is introduced as an impressively strong sumo champion who's claimed to even surpass the S-class. Raiden notes that Darkshine is quite well known and asks to compare the 2's strength. They lock hands and Darkshine seems to be slightly overwhelmed by Raiden's strength. After the bout, Raiden believes that Darkshine might be past his prime. Suddenly, 2 leader candidates barge in, angry that they were not accepted to be leaders. Mars Leo shows off his speed and lets one of his punches hit Darkshine, breaking his own wrist. Suiryu butts in between the 2 and is attacked by both of the candidates, effortlessly fending off their attacks. McCoy continues with introductions and the 2 leader candidates are ushered away by Element and Destro. McCoy concludes by introducing Blue, who had just arrived. He explains that Blue is the reason the Neo Heroes exist. Then a flashback shows how Blue chased Saitama and Sweet Mask. In order to keep up with the 2, he removed the limiter on his suit and likely began speeding up. Before long, he is stopped by Genos, who asks what he's doing. Blue asks if this is the Hero Association's attempt to protect Sweet Mask and also questions Saitama's speed. Blue implies a threat and wants answers from Genos. Genos says that he doesn't know what Saitama will do with Sweet Mask. Back in the present, Blue explains why he created the Neo Heroes, before being revealed as Blast's son. Great Philosopher is ready to engage with Monster's sewage crocodile. He defeats it with relative ease before being swarmed by several of the same monster. After some time, he's saved by a group of Neo-heroes, and the group talks about how easy the fight was before being confronted by a large monster. They call in Wabigaza, who defeats it, recording the battle for her fans to see. In another area, Raiden is dispatching a swarm of monsters, saving a Hero Association hero. He criticizes the battlesuits given to the Neo-heroes members. The news reports on a large number of high-level monsters and notes that they're all being soundly defeated by the Neo-heroes. Excel is also present and with the help of the hunters, defeats Explosive Velocity Snail, a demon-level threat. Crescent Eyebrow is also dealing with the monsters, but is being overwhelmed by Triple Tongues. Ryumon interrupts and engages the threat. Child Emperor wonders about the battlesuits given to the Neo-heroes and questions if they're created by Bofoi and given to the Neo-heroes. The Hero Association discusses the situation, saying that they need stronger leaders, and soon they will start losing supporters. Suddenly, the Hero Name Victims Association shows and begins making requests. This makes Sitch think that they're already done for. An announcement is made outside the headquarters that 5 dragon-level monsters have been spotted. Headquarters is put into lockdown, and Genos, Tank Top Master, and Tatsumaki have been dispatched. Sitch urges to ask the Neo-heroes for help. At Y City, Suiko is forced to run from Mirror's endless attacks, just barely outmaneuvering its many arms. She laments how much she's struggling and is finally grabbed by Mirror and thrown into a storefront. She scans the aisles for a drink with a high amount of alcohol, and after finding one with 9%, hastily drinks it. Suiko emerges from the rubble, and Mirror quickly detects that she's drunk. Despite the alcohol making her movements more unpredictable, all of Suiko's moves prove useless against Mirror. As things are at their bleakest, the Hero Name Victims Association shows up as reinforcements. They all give Mirror their best attacks, but to no avail as the robot knocks them away easily. It begins to seemingly show off and throws an energy ball through a building, opening a massive hole in it. This is all that's needed to scare the heroes away, but Saitama isn't startled at all. Mirror notices him, but notes that the data it has on Saitama is nothing special. As Mirror mentions Saitama's hero name, Caped Baldy, Saitama becomes enraged, and a punch sends Mirror flying away in pieces. The rest of the Hero Name Victims Association is enthralled, and they all high-five Saitama. Other onlookers, Blue and Suiko included, look at Saitama in disbelief. With the threat of the 5 dragons curbed, the Hero Association summons Tatsumaki and Flashy Flash. Tatsumaki is informed that a group of espers with the name 11 are plotting something. Specifically, their leader, Otento, is after Tatsumaki's life. Tatsumaki notes she has been searching for them herself. Flashy Flash is told about a mysterious letter, having something to do with the abandoned masses. He recalls being taught about them while he was in the ninja village. He decides to answer the call. With so many heroes leaving on missions, members of the Hero Association grow concerned. Flashy Flash, in an attempt to quell their worries, reminds them about how the Neo-heroes have been successfully keeping peace. He claims the Hero Association has become too prideful. Hero Association members take this into consideration, noting that the Neo-heroes kept damage to a minimum when fighting the 5 dragons, in contrast to the mess the Hero Association left behind. They believe that if they're successful destroying 11 and the abandoned masses, they will look better in the eyes of the public. Saitama and the Hero Names Victim Association are busy protesting. The Hero Association is in a sour state, unable to successfully cooperate with the Neo-heroes and losing favor in the public eye. Somewhere else, Puri Puri Prisoner and his group have successfully taken out Disaster-level wolf Tentacle Muffler. Puri Puri Prisoner compliments the group, specifically Hammerhead. The rest doubt their possibilities of becoming heroes, but Puri Puri Prisoner continues to reassure them. Out of nowhere, Raiden approaches him. He demands that the prisoners are turned over and put into custody. He elaborates that he wants to cyborgify them in order to easily control them. Puri Puri Prisoner becomes angry upon hearing this. He refuses, having sworn to rehabilitate the prisoners. Raiden decides to deal with the situation using force. Somewhere else, Tsuryu and his Neo-heroes have found their target and surround Garo. He's been working for a moving company, and as they finish loading the truck, he's congratulated by his boss. He asks Garo if he could work for him full-time. Garo begins to speak, but is stopped by a volley of tranquilizer darts. None of them hit home as he displays each dart caught in his hands. The Neo-heroes move in and tell the boss about Garo being a wanted criminal. The Neo-heroes rush at Garo. He effortlessly disables each one of them in a swift motion, leaving them unconscious on the ground. Suri calls back to headquarters to let them know that he failed. He notes his issues with the battlesuit, specifically its safety, and as the sun sets, Suryu ponders that being a hero might not be that easy. He decides to see Suiko the next day. Meanwhile, the Blizzard group watches a report filled with the Neo-heroes' heroic deeds. They solemnly discuss things, including the possibility of moving her to the Neo-heroes. In another room, Fubuki is busy with Psychos. She seems to be entering her mind, trying to find something out. Elsewhere, Tsuryu and Blue are both seen heading to the Hero Association, Tsuryu by motorbike and Blue by jet drone. Blue approaches the main entrance but is denied entry, though he ignores the pleas of the guard. Blue yells towards the facility. He requests to talk with the higher-ups about the future of the hero industry and about his father. Unbeknownst to him, the Hero Name Victims Association is also yelling requests behind him. For a good few moments, they battle to out-yell each other, and Blue eventually gives in. As Blue turns around to see who's yelling, he notices Saitama among the group. Blue confronts him about his mysteriously massive power, only to be ignored. Blue asks for Saitama's name, but gets answered by the other group members before finally being introduced to Caped Baldy. Blue leaves him with a stern warning and walks off. Suiko makes herself known soon after, now having figured out Saitama's name. She thanks the group for saving her. Her next question is about Saitama's power, how he became so strong. Suiko is disappointed upon hearing a blunt answer, the same he gives everyone else. Suiko then introduces Tsuryu to Saitama, mentioning that Saitama is much stronger than him. Tsuryu's cocky attitude leads him to dismiss this, but he crudely admits he will allow him to date Suiko, much to her disapproval. Then Suiko clarifies her stance on staying with the Hero Association. She finds the Neo Heroes' battle suits lame. As Blue is walking away from the Hero Association, he runs into Genos. Blue decides to let him know that Metal Knight has been undergoing some suspicious things, specifically conducting experiments using monsters, and the possibility that the great strength of recent monsters is due to enhancement. As Blue passes Genos, he also lets him know that a position as a Neo leader is open for him. Later, at Saitama's home, Genos tells Saitama of the suspicions about Metal Knight. Genos decides that, in order to look deeper into it, he will work behind the scenes to find out what's going on. Saitama seems to be eager to help. Saitama arrives to see the aftermath of a fight with a monster, seeing the Neo Heroes as victorious. The victors make fun of Saitama's group, noting that the Neo Heroes have much better methods of transportation, unlike many of the Hero Association's heroes. All of a sudden, an emergency announcement sounds, a threat in H City. As the heroes begin running in the direction of the threat, Saitama zooms past them at incredible speed. Meanwhile, Child Emperor contacts Metal Knight to ask him a grim question. Child Emperor wonders what, under the circumstance someone is modifying monsters and attacking people, would their motive be? Metal Knight denies answering. Child Emperor, swallowing anger, offers to visit Metal Knight's lab. He is again denied. At the same time, Saitama arrives just in time to see the monster he chased defeated by Neo Heroes, much to his bewilderment. Growing more angered, Child Emperor warns that Metal Knight's attitude will only increase suspicion. Metal Knight reminds Child Emperor that he shouldn't trust anyone. He doesn't consider Child Emperor a threat, and even hints that he's been spying on him for some time. The meeting ends. Metal Knight looks over to the wall of monitors, each showing a hero, while he wonders which will cause the most trouble.
After Genos is done working with Drive Knight, Saitama rendezvous with him again, and the two of them head to Dr. Kuseno's house. At the doctor's house, Genos introduces Saitama and Dr. Kuseno to each other, and Saitama gives Kuseno a broken handheld video game system, asking him to fix it. Kuseno easily does so, and Saitama declares that he's trustworthy. The three of them then discuss the situation regarding Metal Knight. Saitama suggests asking Metal Knight directly, but after Dr. Kuseno points out that the strategy would involve losing the element of surprise, he proposes a compromise, where Genos can do the fighting, but Saitama will back him up if he needs it. Genos agrees, but expresses his own doubts that Saitama will be able to handle Metal Knight, to which Saitama responds that if he can't, then Genos doesn't stand a chance. Genos asks to head to one of Metal Knight's laboratories immediately, but Saitama declines, stating that he has to clear his schedule with the Hero Name Victims Association. Genos relents after finally calming down, reminding Dr. Kuseno that they had wanted to do an examination of Saitama's body. Saitama is initially reluctant, but readily agrees after Kuseno reveals that he had prepared a barbecue for them. The three of them eat dinner, and afterwards Saitama lays down in his chamber. A while later, he wakes up to a loud noise as several robots attack Dr. Kuseno's house. Elsewhere in the Neo Heroes headquarters, preparations begin for Metal Bad's cyborgification. He had lost the fight with the guards and had been in captivity for 48 hours. A staff member walks in to give him food and is met with fierce denial. He sternly objects to cyborgification and, in his enraged state, wonders if the Neo Heroes are much more evil than they put on. Elemen and Destro enter. Elemen teases Metal Bad about his loss, though Metal Bad believes that the fight had never ended, only having been postponed by his capture. We then see the fight in full. After Metal Bat gets up and readies himself for battle, Destro decides to fight. A swing from Metal Bat strikes Destro's leg, and a recognizable clang lets Metal Bat know this is a cyborg he's battling. In the present now, Metal Bat, led by the two security guards and wrapped in chains, is being led to presumably the recovery room to become cyborgified.
Despite being hit with enough sedative to take down a large animal, Metal Bat is still perfectly lucid. As the three approach an elevator, it suddenly opens to reveal Blue. Having come for a checkup on his lenses, he's curious what Element and Destro are doing. The two claim they can't speak about it. Metal Bat speaks up after some time. He warns Blue that the security guards can't be trusted. Blue's composure turns sour. Before things can escalate further, a group of people interrupt the situation. Walking down the hall surrounded by 4 guards is the Neo Heroes founder and leader, Mr. Fuzzy. Fuzzy, addressing the situation, apologizes to Metal Bat. He claims he didn't give authority to Element and Destro to undergo this cyborgification. Understandably, Metal Bat isn't exactly appreciative of this explanation. Blue confirms that the guards had no ulterior motives. Fuzzy wonders if this slight insubordination is due to their previous experience with much harsher jobs. Even so, the guards apologize. Talking directly to Metal Bat now, Fuzzy lets him know that the Neo Heroes are suspicious of him, wondering if he's a spy from the Hero Association. Fuzzy elaborates that there are efforts being made by the Hero Association to crush the Neo Heroes, and Metal Bat's suspicion isn't fully cleared. He is now confined to the facility for the foreseeable future. Metal Bat takes the warning rather lightly. He breaks out of his chains, walking past Fuzzy and his guards to make his way back to his quarters on his own. Later, Fuzzy meets with McCoy to review information about the S-Class. Fuzzy praises McCoy's contributions to the Neo Heroes, even suggesting that he intends to make McCoy his right-hand man in the future. McCoy is quite enamored with this news. Outside of the building, Blue is busy planning. He wants to form an alliance between the two associations, but understands the near impossibility of this task. He hopes that, as long as every hero puts their differences aside, they should be able to work together successfully. He decides that the best way to get this message through to everyone is through a hero with considerable influence, thinking of Tatsumaki and King as considerable candidates. However, he comes to the conclusion that Saitama might be the best man for such a job. He reasons that Saitama has strength on par with an S-Class hero, along with influence from his numerous protests. Blue decides that, through Saitama, he could bring this plan to light.
Did you enjoy our video? Be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.